hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here tonight on the show. We have plenty of things to talk about, plenty of things to discuss. I'm sure you crazy people are already in the chat running your mouth. Oh my God, it's just flickering away. Flickering away. We're going to pay attention to y'all tonight, but we may not pay attention to y'all tonight. It depends on how nice you are. Speaking of nice, we have to recognize the nice guest we have on the show tonight. We're just going to get right into it.
When you have 11,000 plus horsepower and you got two guys there, so that's 22,000 plus, hit the gas, you literally, when you're standing that close, you can feel your insides move. And I'd never had that happen in any form of motorsports before. So it was kind of an odd experience, and went a couple years just on race day with the U.S. Army and Tony and those guys. But it wasn't until COVID happened, and during all the stuff that happened during COVID, and I was out quarantining and out here in Lake Havasu with Leo. This was literally where we had our second date. We had our first date March 9th, which was the Monday of that week that COVID hit, and our second date was out here, and so that's where I spent 4.5 months with her until I went. We went sprint car racing. I know with the All-Stars, we had a couple 2-day shows before we had a 9-race and 11-day swing down in Oklahoma and Texas. And that is where Lee and I feel like really, really connected even deeper than we had before that. But, when you're traveling to a dirt race and you get done and you load up and you go to the car wash and then you're going down the road, part way to the next track, and we're sitting in the motorhome driving together and talking about everything. I mean, every aspect of our lives. And so, you get to go to her race finally when NHRA started back up, and got to hang around the trailer more and be there the whole weekend. It was an interesting experience. But to answer your question about what's it feel like when you hit the gas, it's really hard to explain to people. I think Hagen says it best. Matt Hagen's our teammate on the funny car team, and he says it's like getting kicked in the chest by a mule. And it kind of is. I mean, it doesn't hurt because you have a molded seat that you're laying back into. But the crazy thing is, I don't think about the acceleration as much because, what I've learned driving these cars is you're always worried about tire shake or tire spin. So when you're hitting the gas, you're just trying to keep it in the groove, and there's a distinct groove in the track. So you're trying to keep the car in the groove. But, the one thing that I think about probably more than what it feels like to hit the gas in a top fuel car is when parachutes come out and when they blossom at the end. It is like it's like you had a car crash is what it feels like, because it slams you into the shoulder belts and your head goes forward, and the Hans and your head neck restraint holds your head up. But it was funny because I remember when we started the winter that we started the bringing the drag race teams into TSR in Brownsburg there. One of my sprint car buddies was at the shop, and he was walking around, and he didn't ask me what it felt like when I hit the gas. He goes, "What's it feel like when the chutes come out?" Well, what I didn't see was Leah's crew chief was walking behind me at the time, and without missing a beat, he goes, "What's it feel like when the chutes come out?" I said, "Relief." I mean, I didn't miss a beat on it, and the crew chief stopped, and he's doubled over laughing. He goes, "I've been in drag racing 20 years, and I've never heard anybody say it like that." And I said, "Well, this is different than sprint car racing and IndyCar and NASCAR, where if I miss pit road or miss the exit to get off the track, you just roll around another lap and you can pull off." Not in drag racing. It's like playing horse with your buddy in the backyard playing basketball. It's make it, take it, miss it, kiss it. You get down to the end, if you don't get slowed down and get turned off, you're going to go through a beach, and then you're going to go into this oversized manly ski net that's going to stop you one way or the other. And you don't want to be hitting that thing at 300 miles an hour. So when those chutes come out, that is, as much as you love going fast and you want to be hauling ass when you get there, when those chutes come out and hit, you're like, all right, I could still get hurt still, but I'm probably not going to die at this point now that these chutes are out, because it stops the car pretty quick.
Well, and obviously y'all had the NHRA, the respect and stuff. That was a question mark, I guess, with the broadcast company at Fox a little bit with the fastest cars on earth. I guess in the dirt oval world, I guess you always hear, it's just going straight. Where's the skill in that? That's always been the criticism, it seems like, a drag racing. Could that be anything further from the truth? When you're talking about taking off, I would think probably the hardest part's holding on to the steering wheel. I mean, that's where you're not cocooned.
Yeah, and the brake handle's actually on the right hand side, so you're holding the brake with your hand. Your left foot is the clutch pedal. So you step off of that, and it's kind of like it is a centrifugal clutch, but it's kind of like when you put an automatic transmission in gear. If you didn't have your foot on the brake, the car's going to roll forward. Well, when you step off that clutch, it's dragging the clutch disc and it's trying to pull you forward, and you're literally holding it with the brake handle. And so you literally have one hand on the wheel, one hand on the brake, and when that light changes, you got to go from letting go of the brake to getting your hands on the wheel, that right hand on the wheel at the same time. And the hardest thing for me when I started was literally getting my eyes on center. So you're either looking up to the right or up to the left, depending on what lane you're in. Excuse me. And the light would change, and I'd let go of the brake, hit the gas at the same time, and I would be 100 to 150 feet down the racetrack before my eyes got focused on where I was at on the racetrack. But the weird thing is your butt knows exactly where you're at. Your butt is in time with everything that's going on. But it was so insanely crazy to be driving a car that goes from a standing start and accelerates that hard, that quick, to try to get your eyes to learn to focus that fast of everything that's coming in, all the input that your eyes are seeing, to get it to process it to your brain and say, yeah, this is what's going on, when you've never seen visually, you've never seen things coming at you that fast before. So it was a big change and a big adjustment learning how to drive the car. But people that think you just sit there and hit the gas and it goes straight don't have a damn clue what a drag car does, because the tire is in a controlled slip. It doesn't stick the tire. The tire's not rolling one to one with the racetrack. It is in a controlled slip. So if the car goes just dead straight down the track, I can promise you it's not a fast run. It's a nice, controlled, lazy, easy run. It's going to roll down there at 318 miles an hour and run a 380, and you're going to be in the bottom half of the field. When it's running into 360s on ET and running in the 330 mile an hour range, that car is moving around. You have to drive them. And not to mention the fact that if it puts a cylinder out, I mean, it's basically like having four hands on each side of the car pushing. And as soon as you take one of those hands away, the four side is going to beat the three side, and it's going to push the car left or right. And you always have to be ready for that. So, I mean, we literally had a run. I was about 4 feet away from the wall by the time I got to the finish line at 320 miles an hour, and it put a cylinder out. And as soon as it does it, it just moves the car all of a sudden. And you just have to be ready for it.
Right. Well, and I'm sure there's ranges, as far as like difficulty of drag racing, skill and ability. Top fuel isn't, your local drag strip with some guy with, his little souped up Camaro. It could be a little easier if you're not doing what y'all are doing. It does seem like when you get into that NHRA top fuel funny car pro stock level, that things amp up a little bit, especially if you want to be up front, for instance.
It's a different talent level. It's a different skill set. So you aren't going to take any of these guys and take them to Port Royal in a 410 wing sprint car and expect them to go rifle off in turn one wide open and make
I
the
thought
corner.
Ron Capps did pretty good in dirt. I thought he did
He
pretty good.
did. He did great when we had the Prelude to the Dream at Eldora. He did a good job in the late model, and he started on the pole of the main event, or it may have been just the first heat. He started on the pole at the SRX race at Eldora the last year we ran, and I think he led the first 11 laps. He did a great job. I mean, him and Cruz Petragon both ran those races with us, and at the Prelude, and both did a really good job. So it doesn't mean they can't do it, but I would say 90% of the skill set that I've had my entire career driving oval cars and road course cars really doesn't even mean anything in the drag racing world. It's a different skill set of really learning how to feel what the cars do, and more so than what we ever did with any other form of racing. I told the Cup guys last year in our last season with the Cup team, I said, take a split second decision that you make. Now take and make a split second decision off of that split second decision. That's how fast the drivers in NHRA have to think, whether it's top fuel, funny car, pro stock bike, pro mods. They're insane how fast they are and out of control they are. But you literally, I think I remember when Lee and I started dating, I saw an article, and a guy asked her what she thought the difference was between the Cup Series and driving a top fuel car. And I think her quote is really probably the best I've ever heard in this topic. And it's, what we did in 3.5 hours, they do in 3.5 seconds. And what she means by that is you're doing the same amount of work, you're just having to do it all really quick. And she's right. I mean, the runs where it goes right and everything's perfect is probably the least amount of work. But it's that way in a sprint car too. When
Right.
your car's doing good, it's the easiest drive, an easier drive than when your car is slower and handling bad. So it's the same in this world as well. But literally 90% of the things that made me good in sprint cars and midgets and stock cars and Indy cars really doesn't even translate over here until you get on race day and you get a situation where you leave the line, the car shakes, you got to pedal it, get back in it, and get the tire caught up. Those are where those skills from before come into play. But you know, I wish every day on race day everybody had to pedal every run because I feel like it'd give me an advantage on the field at times. But it's just a different deal, and all the things that you have to learn, the procedures, the cadence of the procedure, how to take care of the clutch and keep the heat out of the clutch the best you can. There's just a lot of things other than just hitting the gas and steering it down the run that you have to think about. And then you get down there and you're covering over a football field in like 0.3 of a second. So you literally, I mean, getting your hands off the steering wheel while you're still on the run to get them over to the chute levers and get the chutes thrown, get the fuel shut off on the opposite side, get the brakes, do all those things to get stopped so you don't run into that net at the end of the run. There's a lot of things you got to think about that are things that we never had to think about driving any other car.
It seems very like a kind of a Air Force pilot, or it seems like there's a lot of procedure involved and repetition that you have to have down. And if you mess up, something could go bad real quick.
Yeah, something simple that people don't even think about it. So nitromethane is the heaviest fuel of all the fuel weights. And so I think it's every 20 seconds it burns a gallon of fuel, just idling. So if the cadence of your procedure, if you do the burnout and you roll out too far and too long and you take too long backing up, well, now you've burnt more fuel out of it. The fuel is right behind the front tires. So you start taking weight off the nose and you hit the gas. Well, it always picks the left front off the ground, but you start taking weight off the nose and hit the gas. Now the whole front end's coming off the ground. It might try to do a wheel stand 200 feet out on the run. It's just a lot of little details and variables that you constantly have to be thinking about of, you know, how are you managing the fuel? How are you doing all the cadence of the procedure and making sure everything in the procedure is done correctly.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an interesting world. It's an interesting world, and obviously you enjoy it. It's got to be giving you something that some of this other stuff doesn't give you, as far as thrill and excitement.
I would say I miss wing sprint car racing. I mean,
That would be the
I love
closest
getting.
extremism I think that's out there. I mean, personally.
I told Ricky Warner, I said, Ricky, I said, if we could get our cars to leave the corner as hard as this thing leaves the starting line, I said it wouldn't matter what bars, what shocks, what stagger you had in the car. I could make it get through the corner, but you'd kill them guys as fast as you'd run down the straightaway with that kind of traction. But it's yeah, the dirt side's probably the variable from the driving side that I miss the most. I mean,
Mm.
I got out of the car when we were working on the Ford Motor program, and uh, I wasn't feeling all the things that Donnie Schatz was feeling with the car, and he's just so detail oriented, and he really can pick apart his race car, and I felt like I wasn't doing a very good job as a teammate of helping give feedback on the motor side. So that's when I stepped out of the car. We put Kerry Madsen in. Kerry did a great job
Hmm.
driving, and I thought his feedback was really good as well. But yeah, I mean, we get to May this year. It'll be 4 years since I raced a wing sprint car. But I would say of all the cars I've driven, that is the one car that I miss the most right now is being back in a wing sprint car.
Well, and I'm very I don't know the best way to put it. I'm dirt centric on believing how hard it is to drive these cars, and I kind of believe that there's a lack of respect societally wise for how good our drivers are. One of the interviews that I thought of somebody speaking similar to me was one with you with the Ralph Shaheen at Eldora, where he was asking you. I think it was the time you were racing dirt, but you were still at Gibbs or somebody, and he mentioned how what do you say to the people out there who want to know why you want to come and run this lower form style of motorsports? It looked like he was setting you up, because we know Ralph Shaheen's a dirt guy too. He was setting you up, and
Yeah.
you hit the home run on that. You were saying, there ain't no difference between a Steve Kinzer and a Jeff Gordon in on the racetrack. And these guys are just as prominent or talented. There's no lower form of this. This is the pinnacle of the dirt racing or sprint car racing world at that time. Is that the hardcore feeling you got for it there? I mean, is
Oh,
that what you've been
absolutely.
trying to help promote over all these years? Because you've probably given back more than anybody as far as trying to shine a spotlight on the sport.
I think dirt track racers and elite dirt track racers. I mean, obviously wing sprint car racing, I'm very passionate about. I'm still a non-wing guy at heart too. I mean, I had a great time in USAC, and that's how I got to the NASCAR level and IndyCar level because of what I did in non-wing cars. But even the dirt late model world and modified world now, I mean, it is crazy how good the cars are, and it's crazy the level of talent and how many talented drivers are really there and doing it. It's the thing about sprint car racing, I feel like, is that it's not, there's no magic there. Everybody's got the same stuff. Everybody can get the same shocks and torsion bars and chassis. It's not like there's a trick setup that nobody knows about. It's putting the packages together and getting the balance right for the driver, but everybody's got the same stuff. So it lets the crew chief shine, it lets the drivers shine. But it's hard. It's not like, just go back to the drag racing world. You think when Tony Schumacher was winning 8 world championships, and there was a season that in the countdown he won all the races, or I'm sorry, this was Steve Torrance, won all the races in the countdown, locked it up one race before the end of the season. You don't see that in sprint car racing. I mean, there's that many talented guys and talented teams out there that can get the job done. But you know, Eldora, I love Eldora, obviously. I mean, I own the place, but Eldora is not a track that I was comfortable with a 410 wing of just beating the wall and beating the cushion down when it was really close to the wall. I didn't feel like I had enough room to make a mistake.
Right.
So I shied away
Right.
from it. I could do
And
it in a non,
if you don't, you can't perform at that elite level. That's the skill. That's the ability.
and it's, that's why Bobby Allen ran the bottom and got so good at running the bottom. There's just
Right.
times you just don't feel comfortable being that close, and especially running that fast. You make a mistake and you need 12 inches to catch your car. Well, the cushion's 8 inches away, or the wall's 8 inches away from the cushion. So you have to have that confidence, and for some reason, Eldora of all places, the one place that you would think I would be great at when you own it, that was the one place that was like kryptonite for me, was trying to get up against the wall late in the night when it was all the way up there.
And you had to get up there if you wanted to.
Yeah,
If you wanted to win those big
absolutely.
events, you had to be there.
Yeah, if you didn't, Gravel and Rico and Larson and uh,
What late
God,
model race was it that you had a shot on? It was on the wall too. You had a shot
that
at
went
one of
on.
them. One of the late
Oh,
model races. Which one
the
was that?
Dream.
The Dream. Yeah, it was a Dream.
Dream one year. Scott Bloomquist and I put on a hell of a show. That was probably one of the coolest late model races I ever ran, that I didn't even finish in the top five at the end of it. I think we fell back to sixth or eighth. Tire came apart because we siped it too deep. But it was fun because every time I passed Bloomquist for the lead, you'd see the crowd cheer. And every time Bloomquist would pass me back, you'd see the crowd cheer.
Right.
And we just kept going back and forth and back and forth. And the fun part was I really liked Scott. I mean, Scott and I went fishing once down in Lake Okeechobee down in Florida. And you want to talk about a super smart individual and one hell of a race car driver. That was Scott Bloomquist. But that whole race that night, we raced each other, I mean, hard as we could race each other, and never touched each other, just raced each other with respect. And that was the fun thing about Scott. I mean, Scott could get in your head before you even put your helmet on to get in the car. I mean, he just had that power. But he had a lot of those guys that he raced with, that he as much as he had that hard-nosed exterior, he raced with a lot of respect. And he didn't race guys dirty. He was a pretty clean racer.
Yeah, and like you were mentioning, I guess you fell back in that field. I feel like that is kind of the difference in the late model industry is at least today, probably has always been here for 30 years or so, is there's a deep field of good cars, a deep field of good drivers, and they put on 100 laps. And if you can't, you could be good in the first 35 or 40, but to be good for 100 straight laps with the competitors they have and the depth they have, I'm a sprint car guy, I talk a lot of sprint car topics, but I always tell them, y'all just don't hold a candle to that currently.
Yeah, I think it's been fun the last, probably, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years in particular. The sprint car racing, because of the weight of the cars and the wing on top, I mean, the track had to really fall off a lot for the pace to slow down. And the late model guys, when the track would slow down, they really slowed down. And then it seems like in the last 4 or 5 years, even the dirt late model guys, I mean, the track can get slick and they are still hooked up and
Hmm.
hauling ass. And so it makes it really challenging, own an Eldora like we do. It makes it really challenging to balance the track through the night, because during the World 100 and the Dream and the big shows, you're going to have a lot of laps on the racetrack. Well, the hard part is if you make it at the beginning of the night to where at the end of the night it's exactly where you want it. It's too tight form in hot laps. It's too tight form qualifying. In the heat races, it's just a dyno session where they run wide open, and probably three-quarters of them are dialed in to get around there, and there's still a quarter of them that are too tight. By the feature, it's great and they can race, but so we have to consciously try to start the track a little weaker to where it falls off a little quicker, so that by qualifying it's good for the heat races. You need to have a racetrack that they can pass on in the heats. So you got to kind of let the track die off a little bit, and then at some point you're going to have to revive it for the mains. And so we always end up having to take a break. But I don't think there's a dirt track in the country now that can start the beginning of the night and have it good for the heat races and good for the main event. It's almost impossible with the technology and how good they can get the cars hooked up now.
Is that really what's eating the track up the most now? Is it just guys are really, that not mechanical? Well, I guess you could call it mechanical grip, driver grip, tire grip. It's just laying that tire into the track and sandblast or rubbing it in as hard as we can that we've ever seen.
Yeah, just the cars are that hooked up that, it's when the racing's the best is when the pace slows down a little bit, and that gives guys opportunity. And when the track gets really wide, then it gives guys opportunity to do slide jobs, and you're getting multiple grooves. When it's heavier and it's narrower, it's really hard to pass. I mean, the pace is so fast that you have to be so much quicker than a guy to get by. So it's literally just the technology. I mean, shock technologies went crazy. I mean, it's impressive to see how good the shocks are, and how uh, spring smashers for the late model guys and torsion bar raiders for the sprint car guys. They can just get the cars so dialed in and so hooked up that you really have to get the track slick quick for it to get in a state where they can really race with each other.
Well, and you think about how much old dirt's out there. Some of these other tracks, besides the marquee ones that bring in new dirt from time to time, they've been racing week in, week out, and they just grade up a rubbered up track and work it back in there. But there's still particles of rubber in the dirt. So it doesn't take as much to fire those up and rubber down the surface again, depending on how many years it's been ran on.
Yeah, and a factor, just a little variable. Every time the cars come off the racetrack and they're carrying mud off the track, it ends up in the infield, or it ends up in the pit area. So as time goes on, that dirt, that surface gets transferred over the fence to the car wash, to the pit area, to who knows where. It ends up going away. And so you always have to have a surplus, so to speak, or find a way. I mean, Knoxville, there's a vein of clay by the lake and the river, that they found this vein of clay that they like, and that's where they try to go to restock material for the racetrack. And same at Eldora, we found some clay that it's temperamental. I like the characteristics of it. I like what it does as far as when it slicks off and how it holds. But it is we got it pretty close to the track too. But our clay is a little bit temperamental on getting too much moisture in it. If it rains too much, or if it gets too much moisture in it, it tends to get soft, and that's where we get in trouble. So we've got Levi Jones, who's our new general manager at Eldora, and that was one of the things going into the winter last winter that I told him that we need to try to find a way of finding something that we can mix in with the clay that we have. If it's a different dirt that goes into it, or different clay that we can mix in that'll bond a little tighter, so that if it does get oversaturated, that we can keep a hard surface.
Well, in late models and dirt, I was there at that Eldora Million. I believe this is after I got kicked out of the media center. That was another event, but that was the funny one. Figured that out. But the dirt, y'all brought it in for that Eldora Million. You had a race prior to that. It didn't look good. And y'all took that dirt off. Now, that was 2021, I believe, or 22,
So
21. I think it was 21. Whatever happened to all that dirt that was taken off the track? Because it was moved,
we kept it.
correct? All of it
Yeah,
was
we
taken
kept
off.
it. So they literally, we had worked all night on it and didn't think we were going to be able to get it right. And so we'd already made the call to a company in Ohio there to come help us clean a lot of that clay off, that new clay. And it was just so saturated and so wet that there was just no shot at getting it tight enough, because when they get wet like that, you need to open it up. You really need to rip it up to where you're digging about 6 inches down in the ground. You need the sun and wind to help dry it out, and then you can start laying it back in. And we just didn't have the time to do that and didn't know that that's what we were up against. This was new clay. We hadn't had a lot of experience with it yet, and it was the first time that we'd had a problem.
And this was the first million since the
Yeah.
Mopar million ish. I mean, it was the first million to win because the Mopar million was $1 million purse, not to win. So
So I remember Jerry Gappens was our GM at the time, and so we'd already made the phone call to get those guys to come help get it off of there. And we had written a they had our PR staff, they were writing the press release saying that we were going to have to postpone. And I went back to the motorhome and just laid on the couch. I was disgusted. I was sick to my stomach. I'm like, oh my God, we've let all these fans down. We've let all these teams and drivers down. And, we've done something historic, bringing back Earl's big event with the million and screwing this up, basically. And I remember getting the call from Jerry. He goes, "You still here?" I said, "Yeah." I said, I'm laying in the motorhome pouting right now." He goes, "You need to come down here." And so I went down to the gate on the back stretch, and they had started at the gate and had went backwards down the back stretch into turn two, is the direction they were going, cleaning the clay off. And I remember driving down there, and I looked and I'm like, oh my God, it looks like a pool table. I mean, it was unbelievable how smooth it was. They had one bulldozer, one excavator, and 3 triaxle dump trucks that were working. 5 pieces of equipment, and they had worked for an hour and had got all the way to turn 2 from the gate in the backstretch. And kind of got wheeling around, and I got poking on it with a screwdriver. I'm like, I'm not so sure that we haven't got it shallow enough that we're getting into some of the old material and we might be able to work it. So I called Reese O'Connor from Kokomo. Reese came over, and I remember there were 4 or 5 of us that started working on it the rest of the day. And we started working while they were working, while they were still digging everything up. And we stockpiled that clay that we had taken off the racetrack. We had a pile of it. So we still have that. When we need it, we can introduce it back in, and we know what the consistency of it is. But we literally worked that night. I think there were 5 of us that worked till midnight, and we sent 3 of them back, and Reese and I stayed up through the night working, and we worked till 7:30 in the morning. And when the sun was coming up at 7:30, 2 of the guys that we had sent to bed at midnight got down there, and we never shut the tractors off and the grader off. Literally just switched places. And I know Reese and I went up and took like a 3 or 4 hour nap, and then we were all back down at it again. And it wasn't the best track that we've ever had by any means, but the teams got to race for $1 million and got to race for a big purse, and we got the show in. It wasn't, like I said, wasn't perfect, and I wasn't proud of it, but I was proud of the fact that we never gave up. And that was probably what was the most sickening thing of, hours before that, was sitting there going, we're going to have to give up on this, and we're not going to be able to get it in. And that's something we work really hard at Eldora. If we get rain, I mean, we've had a history. We'll run A mains at 4 in the morning because people already made the commitment to be in there. And a lot of them drive from out of state. They'd rather see the show at 4 in the morning than they would give it up and have to come back a month later and have to make new travel plans and try to get off work to get there. So we've always worked really hard to try to have the policy of, if we can get it in, we're going to get it in. So that way, if it rains, people go out to their cars, or they'll hang out, at the bar, at the grandstands. But they know, as long as we're working on it, that we're going to do everything we can to get the show in, and that we're pretty consistent on that, I feel like.
yeah, I mean, that would kind of be the responsibility there. That would kind of be the only real, I guess, difference between an Eldora and a Knoxville. It's in a town, whereas it's like Eldora becomes a town, it seems like. And yeah, when you have a show there, you got to get it in. There ain't nowhere else for really people to go except for the campers outside in the hotel 30 minutes away or 20 minutes away.
Well, the good thing is we got the ballroom remodeled
Okay.
by the end of the year this year. So if it rains, or if we have delays, or even we kind of use the concept of what we do at the Dingus Lounge at Knoxville. I mean, we got a place where people can go, and we'll have the TVs on inside, and they can watch hot laps and qualifying if they're not ready to go inside yet. And and then obviously with all the camping that we have, there's a place for them to go after the race where they can see replays and food, and have a good time with everybody. So it's we still do our bands after the big nights, and And then now we've got the ballroom though that we can share with everybody and let them have a good time.
So what is so this is kind of new, right? This ballroom for coming up
It
this year.
is.
What is it gonna? You just said the dingus. Now there's some pretty crazy things that happen at the dingus. Are you trying to? And the ballroom isn't as small as a dingus. What do you mean? Like, is this gonna be like Woodstock or something? What are we talking about
I
here?
don't know it's going to be that crazy, but what we wanted to
Any
do
no
is,
rave parties or anything going on there?
not that I'm aware of yet.
Okay,
So
okay. You ain't gonna
doesn't
say
one may not break out at some point,
out
but
of sight, out of mind. I got you.
we had always used the ballroom. When I bought the facility from Earl and Bernice, I mean they would have banquets there. We'd obviously have the racetrack banquet there, but banquets and corporate events. There were wedding receptions that were held at Eldora, and one of our previous GMs really wasn't in favor of wanting to take on that challenge and wanted to turn it into offices. And I said, absolutely not. We are not doing that. I said, we're gonna make this place fun again. And I remember I bring up Jerry Gappins again. I remember we're leaving one of the late model races and was leaving in the morning, and he said, "Are you gone?" I said, "No, I'm still here." He goes, "Well, come by the ballroom. I want to show you something." And they had the drop ceiling in, and it always looked really short to me because it's such a big room, but you got drop ceiling in there that made it seem kind of claustrophobic a little bit. And he takes me up this staircase that's dirt. It's got dirt on the steps, and there's bats flying around up in the upper part of it. And he took a flashlight and shined it across the top of the drop ceiling, and it's all these beautiful arch beams that are in there that hold the roof up at Eldora. So, or at the ballroom there. So I said, we got to save that. He goes, that's what I'm thinking. So we came up with a plan, and literally it's a vaulted ceiling in there. People have never, I guarantee you there's nobody alive probably right now that has seen the beams in that building there. So we just totally redid it. I mean, we've had a wedding reception there already. It's back open for corporate events again, and we have the ability to kind of, so to speak, what I call neutralize it. I mean, I'm going to have a sprint car and a late model in there for our big events, hopefully, if I get my way. It was designed for that. But when it's a corporate event and you don't want it to necessarily look like you're at a racetrack 100%, we can move things around and pull curtains to hide some things to neutralize it for corporate events. So it's just a place that can be used all year round. We've got a guy that's strictly that is 100% his job is running that facility now. So it's between beverages and food and corporate events and weddings and receptions and all that. We got a pretty cool place to hang out after the races are over.
So that's the idea in the perfect world. To say, the dream, I think, is the first big event of the year. Uh, Prelim nights get done, everybody gets their autographs, and then in the perfect world, everybody then goes to the ballroom, just like they would at Knoxville, goes to the dingus and waits for the sun to come up, basically.
I don't know that we'll be able to keep it open that long. We're in good graces with our local sheriff's department there,
Okay,
but we'll
proper
we'll have to
answers.
be mindful of curfews as far as liquor is concerned. But at least it's someplace that I think, like we talked about, if we get rain, we do everything we can to finish the show and get it all in. And if we get rain delays, it's a place people can go hang out as well. But we're gonna have good food over there, obviously good drinks, and a good place to hang out while you're there.
Well, actually, thinking about that, I think the Litz Race 2 is your first national event. That's there in just a month, I think,
Yeah,
a month or
coming up.
so, with the World of Outlaws. I mean, World of Outlaws still at Eldora. I mean, why not High Limit? I mean, this is the big debate now. High Limit, World of Outlaws. Some people are saying the High Limits All Stars with Brad Sweet. They're taking their shots at it. World of Outlaws traditionalists still think they're really great, and they are by pen and paper. They very much are. The roster's pretty stout. What's your take on this whole outlaw high limit deal? What do you feel about it all?
I think it's great. I
Current state of
mean,
sprint car racing overall, I
yeah.
guess.
I think the only negative thing that we're seeing, which we might as well just get that out of the way, literally the only negative thing I see is that we took, 10, 12 really good cars and teams and split them up in between
Mm.
two good series. Um, the Outlaws has such a deep history, and I don't know that anything's ever going to rival it other than High Limit. I mean, what Brad and Kyle are doing, I mean, you think of things that they're thinking of that are outside the box. When has any form of motorsports outside of NASCAR had a charter? Well, and Formula One had any kind of a charter system, to where
Right.
what you're investing, you've got equity in.
Which they've
So
renamed the franchise because how bad NASCAR's handled the charter situation.
yeah,
But
I don't know that I'd want to use that word either, but
yeah, yeah.
no, I think it's good though. I mean, honestly, I mean, what we did with the All Stars and the reason we sold the All Stars is because I believed in what Kyle and Brad were wanting to do, and I feel like they do a great job with it. It's I think it's real easy to sit there in the first year of them having a series and throw rocks at them and not like this or that or whatever. But until you've owned a racetrack, until you've owned a series and had to do it yourself, people can kiss my ass on that. They all think they all are keyboard warriors. They think they know everything. They know everything it takes to do it all.
I
And it's
try to get
bullshit.
close. I mean, no, I'm just
But I think you got a pretty good pulse on things in all honesty. I mean, that's why we're doing this with you today. But I think in the big picture of it, the health of it, I think sprint car racing's healthy right now. I really do. I mean, I think we saw that start with COVID. I mean, I was really worried that we were really going to see a ton of racetracks close because of COVID, and it was just going to shut people down because they needed that income during that time.
well, and that also was
That's
the rise of streaming. That's where streaming really and honestly saved a lot of tracks in a way.
exactly. But I think seeing the popularity of it, we saw crowds going up after COVID and during COVID. So I think it was a good thing for short track racing. But now having Brad and Kyle in the mix on the ownership side of a series, I mean, there was nothing that was forcing World Racing Group and World of Outlaws to raise purses
Yeah,
and tow money
yeah.
and point fund money at the end of the year. So if it wasn't for Kyle and Brad, that money would have never went up. Plus the money that they're putting into it. Now sprint car racing is racing for legit money like late model racing is. And that's what the goal that Brad had all along. I mean, Kyle went and started running late model races and he could race every weekend for at least 20,000 to win.
Yeah.
You were lucky if you had a 20,000 to win sprint car race to go run.
Yeah.
So now
The
those
it's almost
going
like
up.
streaming showed them that too in that 21, 22 era. XR came along and just started making late model racing a bidding war in a way there as well. And then late models started paying so much, and sprint car people seeing it pay so much, and they're like, "Why can't we do that?" Same kind of deal. The premise.
I feel like it's a situation. Johnny Morris from Bass Pro Shop's a real good friend of mine, and I remember one day him and I were riding in a car together, and I thought, man, I've always wanted to ask this question, but I can't wait to see what his reaction is going to be because he's one of the nicest guys in the world. And I said, what's your feelings about Cabela's? And at that time, this was before the merger of Bass Pro and Cabela's, and he looked at me and he goes, "They make me better." And I was really caught off guard by that. I didn't understand it, and it took some time, but I eventually figured out what he was talking about, and he's right. And I think it's exactly what we're going to see with World of Outlaws and High Limit, that they are going to push each other to make each other better. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to be better for the fans. It's going to be better for the teams. Everybody's going to benefit from it. So it's a situation where, until you have something that forces your hand, you don't have to change anything if you're the top dog. And World of Outlaws has been that forever. But now that there's a change and there's somebody else that's putting pressure on, and it's forced Brian Carter and World Racing Group to make changes. And I think Brian and his group did a great job with it. I mean, they've got better paying shows than they've ever had. You look at Dirt Vision and what they do with Dirt Vision, it's better than it's ever been. That's because of Flow. Flow pushed that envelope and made Dirt Vision have to be better. So you got Flow that does an awesome job, that's come in and kind of rewrote the rules, so to speak, which I think's been a great thing for all of us. So between that and Brad and Kyle as series owners and what Brian's doing on the World of Outlaw side, you got two healthy series that are going to constantly push each other to keep producing a better product.
Where does it go though? I mean, like so the late model world I think operates fine with two national series because I think there's been more money pumped in the late model industry. I think that's an icon situation. A lot of people idolize, for instance, Scott Bloomquist the last 30 years, so they wanted to be him. I think in the sprint car world, a lot of money's went to trying to get to the NASCAR world because the idol's been the Gordon, the Stewart, the Kane, the Larson. So I think the funding to become the icon of the industry has been pumped into their industry more. That's why they have more cars, because people are trying to emulate Scott. But I also think that, you know, they only have 40 to 50-ish races on each national tour, and they take weeks off and kind of bounce back and forth with their shows, and don't really run on the same weekend a lot. And then they have their big Super Bowl events, whether it's a North South or your events at Eldora, where it's like, these are kind of more of an AFC, NFC deal. And then they have this battle match or whatever. That's why sometimes, a few years ago, I think even Dirt Tracker said, make dirt late model championships great again, because it felt like winning a World 100 was more of a thing than winning a late model championship, whether that's Lucas or World of Outlaws, because you could say you beat them all.
Right.
But that's also the issue, not just that, but the scheduling. World of Outlaws is 80, 90 races. High Limit's only 60, but they're off so that their guys can go run Knoxville Nationals and premier events. And if those races were high limit events, they may not have as many races off. They probably will have a 70 or 80 race schedule. So it seems like it's harder. I mean, it sounds good. Maybe the sprint car world could be like the late model world, but due to the scheduling and what the fans are used to, a full weekend every week event, I think that's going to be a little more difficult to accomplish.
Yeah.
And you have lesser teams to spread around.
I think what you see that's different with the world of or with the late models versus the sprint cars, you have Brian Carter, you look at the portfolio of what World Racing Group has between the World of Outlaw sprint cars, World of Outlaw late models, UMP,
Super Dirt.
Super Dirt Series in the Northeast, UMP sanctioned everywhere. I mean, they've got a lot of irons in the fire, and so they've got to look out for themselves all the time. Where I feel like what Kyle and Brad bring to the table is they still have that same mentality of having big events and doing big shows and big schedules and this and that, but they also realize the history of the sport, and there are races like Kings Royal and Knoxville Nationals that, may not necessarily have World of Outlaw. The World of Outlaws don't necessarily sanction all those, but they're a part of them. But they let their drivers be a part of it. Where, Brian's come off, he wouldn't let him run anything. And now he's at least letting him run 4 races outside of the World of Outlaws. But that, I think, is one of the things where Brad and Kyle were really smart of. You don't necessarily have to have 80 or 90 races to support your series and make it make sense financially for them as a sanctioning body. But what they have done is take care of the racers and say, hey, we're going to give you the weekend off because there's a big show over here that we all want to go to. And it may not be a high limit show, but who cares? We're doing this to take care of each other. So they're looking out for themselves as a sanctioning body, but they're also looking out for what they feel like is the best interest of the racers as well. I don't think Brian's business model is quite the same, but for different reasons. It doesn't mean that he's wrong, but he has to look at it from a different angle than what Brad and Kyle have to look at it.
Well, I mean, I kind of think that, the Outlaws are somewhat responsible for High Limit being a full-time series right now, because they didn't let their guys off to do those 12 races anytime they wanted to. Before High Limit announced they were going to do a full-time deal, I felt like Flow. I feel like even though it's High Limit, I feel like it's Flow. I feel streaming companies are very important, especially Flow at this point. They have a lot of capital. They just did that Dream Sports deal, and now they got $100 million, I guess. It seemed like they kind of just wanted to have a Flow Racing Night in America deal with High Limit, where Flow, okay, we understand to bring the eyes in the late model world, we just need the big names, and that's, Davenport or Pierce. And to get those guys in the late model world, they just had to throw $20,000 to win on a Tuesday, and they could get them. But then they looked at the sprint car side, and the Outlaws had this, like you said, no competition, had the teams locked down and whatever. However, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I think there's like, well, we'll put this midweek in there and make Kyle and Brad make it sound all like this great thing. And then it seemed like that the Outlaws just kind of rejected working with High Limit and Flow in there in the beginning of letting them race. And that kind of spurred the response of, well, then we're just going to start our own damn series if that's how it's going to be, And
well, again, as long as there's nobody putting pressure on you to make a change, I mean, your teams can sit there and complain all they want and say, well, we want more of this or less of this and that. Well, a sanctioning body doesn't have to do that if there's not outside pressure to do it. If it doesn't fit what's best for them as a sanctioning body, they don't have to do it. Well, when you get enough guys that say, we want something different and they want to change, and they go over and start something, now you've got that pressure.
Right.
Now you see how it went from 0 races outside of World Outlaws to at least 4, but the purses, the point fund went up. I mean, that at the end of the day is better for everybody. So it's it kind of goes back to that Johnny Morris thing of, having some pressure from somebody makes you evolve, makes you sit there and think, how can we do things better? And at the end of the day, it's better for everybody.
Mm.
It's better for the teams, the drivers, it's better for you and the media, it's better for the fans, for the track owners, it's better for all of us, and it's going to keep growing the sport.
Well, it seems like, some of the probably some of the bigger complainers when there was no competition about how the Outlaws did things are some of the complainers of this high limit deal going to take the Outlaws down, and heck, whether that's Ginger Kitty and Cody Jacobs or whatever, I mean, it does seem like people see this high limit thing as a threat that's going to take the Outlaws down. Now, in general response, I mean, with that franchise system they got coming, that's supposedly happening 28, 29. If it gets up to the numbers they're projecting, that's going to be tough. And in the defense, if you take a few of the marquee teams off the Outlaws right now, there's not too many guys, back to not enough stars of the industry. There's not really too many guys left. If you take a few of the hitters off of the Outlaw roster and throw them on that high limit side, I just think it's going to be real tough to have two series living, in a
I
way.
just don't see it happening. I honestly don't. I think there's room for both of them. I think there's people that, and Cody Jacobs is a great example. Cody's been around the world of outlaws his whole life. So to him, I mean, that is his life and that's his passion. You got purists that are going to stay with the world of outlaws, and you're going to have people that are coming in going, hey, this might be better for us and how we run our business and our race team to go over to high limit. There's room to do both.
But for instance, say you lose Gravel and Macedo to high limit, how are you going to
Sure.
sell? I mean, Selzy and Shot's going to be your main sell ticket now with maybe
But,
Hod.
but
I
let's go
mean,
back to, why would you lose them in the first place?
if it's all business and they're all trying to make money, that franchise thing's very alluring to some, people are spending a lot of money in sprint car racing. I mean, they're looking at, oh my God, here's an option. Somebody doing it different, like you said. Here's an option where I could actually make some money as a team owner, and I got one of the best teams in the country, and I'm just going to lose it due to loyalist ideology. That
But some of these teams don't. I mean, and trust me, we're not one of them. I remember when Jason Myers won the World Outlaw Championship, and Casey had his teams, I had my teams, and I remember watching this bullshit interview that Jason Myers gave about, oh, we're running up against these superstar teams that have unlimited budgets. We've never ran a sprint car season where we had an unlimited budget. I mean, I don't have a full-time company to fall back on that can fund this if we're not getting enough sponsorship or not making enough in race winnings to support it. So, I always took offense to that from Jason, and then it comes to find out his owner was embezzling money or whatever he was doing and ended up going to prison. And they were testing and spending more than Casey and I both, way more than Casey and I both were spending at the time. But I know Casey, I know myself, we don't overspend on our programs. We spend what it takes to do it. But there are teams out there that don't need the funding and don't need the purse. They want they want that World of Outlaw championship. That
Right.
is that the history of that holds so much weight that I don't know if I don't think you could pull all the big names off of it. I just don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Roth. I mean, he had a franchise team. He just didn't take it, but he still got a team on the Outlaw Tour.
Yep. Yeah,
So
I just think I think it's healthy having two good series. I think you're gonna have some guys that business wise are just going to look at it from that standpoint. Then you're going to have guys that are purists that still look and go, hey, we're racing for great money over here and better than it's ever been at the World of Outlaws. And it's still a World Outlaw title that you're trying to win. So I think you're going to have purists that are going to stay. I think you're going to have guys that are going to venture other ways. But at the end of the day, there's room for both of them to
you do
exist.
think there's room? That would be the question. Is there enough premier teams, enough
I think
ticket
so. I mean,
selling names? I think is the issue there.
I would love to see, I think in the perfect world, I'd love to see 4 more elite teams and drivers on each series. I think if you could get 4 more elite teams and drivers on each, I think you wouldn't have any issues selling tickets.
Well, it takes time to build a name. That's the problem. It takes a little, especially in dirt racing. You got to have the performance as well mixed in there. I mean, look at David Gravel's name's just getting relevant here in the last 3 or 4 years. You know, really a ticket selling name as far as you know, as you're saying, one of those guys, and he's been racing for what, 10, 15? I mean, it takes a long time to develop 4 more. You know, that would be hard to do in a way.
But it goes back to what you mentioned too about, having the late model guys come for like a, UFC and or AFC and, having them come from different sides. That's what makes the Kings Royal. That's what makes
Mm-hmm.
the Knoxville Nationals. That's what makes these events that much bigger now, because now it is the only opportunity to see all of these big teams at the same place at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. Who is better and whose series is better. It's it's great for somebody like me that has marquee events like that. So I kind of like it. I like where it's at.
Well, I think you could have, you know, they got the 15 franchise projected eventually with high limit. I think if you had 15 franchise outlaw too, and you had an ASC, NFC, thanks for the light in the
Yeah,
background.
we're sitting here with the sun setting over the mountain there, and I text Lee. I'm like, hey, I need some help. I need lights.
But I think you could have an AFC, NFC style actual system if they really all wanted to kumbaya. I think Flow is a very big entity in comparison to the World of Outlaws and Dirt Vision. So I think it is something to be scared of in a sense as well. Because I think Flow has the capital to kind of, if they want to come in here and bully shit around, they have the money to do it. You
I
know,
think so, but I don't know. I've never really asked Kyle or Brad or anybody at Flow even if the ultimate goal is to take down the World of Outlaws. I just don't feel like that's what's trying to happen here. I think they're trying to make the sport better and grow the sport. Um, I would be surprised. I mean, I'm not saying that none of them think that way, because they're one of them or all of them might think that way. I just don't know. I've never asked the question, but I would be surprised to think that that's the direction that any of them really want this ultimately to go at the end of the day.
well, and you know, the closest thing, you know, once again, kind of a team ran deal there with High Limit. It's kind of a team oriented deal that's close to Cart. You know, Cart and
Yeah.
IndyCar championship auto racing teams. I always tell people all the time when talking about popularity of motorsports in America. I mean, IndyCars were kart racing was huge in the early '90s. You know, NASCAR was a second tier deal. They took the F1 champion Nigel Mansell. You know, took him away from. I mean, he left to go to kart racing. It was huge. Now I believe you got into the IndyCar stuff due to the split, right? Where they had it, right? You and
Yeah.
Steve Kinzer actually, Kinzer. That's how he got in the Indy 500.
Yeah, the IRL split happened, and thank God it was just ovals only. And
Right.
so it created a huge opportunity for guys like myself that I never would have got looked at for an Indy. Well, I say that. I don't think I ever would have got looked at for an IndyCar deal. But literally in '96, when I signed up, uh, I was driving for Harry Ranier, who owned the white and orange Hardee's car that Cale Yarborough drove in the Cup Series. And he got out of the sport for a while, came back in '96. I drove for Harry. At the end of the season, and I'd also started driving for Menard that year with the IRL with 5
Okay.
races. And at the end of the season, within literally in a 4-day span, I got 2 phone calls that to this day I question my sanity or whether I made the right decision or not. But one of them was with Barry Green from Team Cool Green. But I don't think if I hadn't ran the 5 IRL races, I don't think I would have got that offer and that phone call from Barry.
Right.
4 days after that, I got a phone call from Rick Hendrick to drive the 25 Cup car. And literally, I'd only ran 8 Xfinity races, or Busch races, they called them back then. I'd only ran 8 of those races for Ranier, and I was terrible. I mean, I wrecked down of the majority of them. Just hadn't learned how to drive a stock car with radial tires yet. But I remember turning that opportunity down as well, just because I figured the Busch Series, I was one step away from being at the elite level in Cup, and honestly just felt like that if I didn't get there and make a splash and make my mark, that I was going to come back down the ladder and I wasn't going to make it. Where I just felt like I needed more time in a stock car, so I turned that deal down.
How
But
old were you when this is all happening?
oh God, um, 25.
Oh God, you're over the hill. You're washed up in today's
Nowadays, yeah.
world. In today's world, you don't even get looked at. And you were called a Gillette Young Gun, I believe. What the hell? At 25, 26, 27. That was 25 when you were making the decision. You didn't become NASCAR relevant until probably what, 2 or 3 years from then.
Yeah, I mean
So you were
you
28 as a Gillette Young Gun. Let me clarify.
yeah, and I wasn't even a guy that liked shaving then. So
Right.
still not a big fan of it, but it gets grayer and grayer as time goes on here, and you just got to
Well,
concede.
we were talking about maybe some NASCAR topics to talk about, but I mean, they're just wreck festing over there with these kids, throwing them in there, multimillionaire rich kids with nothing else to do besides riding a yacht or drive a race car. And they picked the race car route, and this is what we got. They talk about teaching respect by fighting somebody on the racetrack, but if you don't get to cup racing or to Xfinity racing until you're 24, 25, if you properly, or I call it naturally, I call these people like GMOs, the organic race car driver like you naturally comes up racing locally at 18 or 19 and starts dipping into regional scenes and asphalt short track scenes and learns respect by racing for 5 years. They don't just get injected into a race seat that they didn't earn with the talent. They earned with the money and the pocketbook.
I,
That's where I think
I
the current racers lacking respect is they never got taught, no on the job training.
right. It's a bad situation where the focus is get them in good cars as quick as you can. And the great thing is there's great race car drivers coming up. There's a lot of these young kids that are really, really good race car drivers. The problem with them is exactly what you mentioned. They don't have respect. They don't race with respect. And honestly, I blame this clear down to the go-kart level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I raced go-karts, we didn't have full body work around the
Mm-hmm.
carts. You couldn't just go nudge a guy out of the way. If you did, you might climb his tire and flip, or you might end up on the back of him. Well, now they teach these kids to sit there and just push each other out of the way. Well, they learn to do that at 8, 9, 10 years old. And now you're putting them in stock cars. I mean, shit, you can go to Madera Speedway and they're putting 12-year-old kids in
Yeah.
full-size late models, which
Yeah.
I mean, one of my best friends is Kevin Harvick, and his son Keelan is driving one now. I My opinion and Kevin's are different on this. I don't understand why we're putting kids in adult cars. There's plenty of things for him to drive. There's plenty of things for him to get experience and laps in. Uh, the thing that scares me about it is you're putting these young kids that their bodies aren't mature, they're growing. Um, you can hurt these kids if something goes wrong. And thank God the safety advancements have come a long way. And you know, I've been with Simpson Race Products for 33 years now, and there's never a time I've got in a car and I didn't feel safe. But as evolution and technology's got better, it all just keeps getting better and better. So it's protecting these kids more, but they don't learn real life experiences
Right.
when they're 12 years old.
Well, and they're
'Cause
signing up for a life of everything that comes with it. Even the most successful life can be very stressful or things you have to go through. And it's like, is it what they always wanted to do? I remember a couple years ago, I went to Cycle Land, which is where Kyle Larson grew up and got famous from. And I'm in analytical perspectives all the time. I'm always watching my surroundings, and I just noticed a lot of kids not really into it. I mean, they got 200 cars there, and I walked up to one of the parents. I was like, "Do any of the kids actually want to be here?" And she was like, "Oh, maybe 5." And it's like, it's not even their dream to grow up and be Kyle Larson. It's the daddy or the mama's dream that wants them to do that. And so they're signing
soccer
them up.
moms.
They're it's soccer moms, but it's soccer dads too, and they're
Yeah.
signing them up for a lifetime of financial struggle, mental, I mean, the whole damn physical risk. I mean, there's something to be said to where we shouldn't just be, I mean, it almost sounds like a transgender conversation, but we shouldn't be allowing kids to make decisions that could affect their entire lives in a way.
Well, here's the reality of it. I honestly don't know what the number is now, but I remember, I mean, God, this has been years ago, maybe 15 years ago. There was the stat of over 1 million drivers, race car drivers in the United States. Every weekend for Cup, at the most, they're going to have 40 drivers. 1 million drivers for 40 spots on Sunday. So your kid at Cycle Land or your kid that's racing over here or over there that the parent thinks he's the greatest thing in the world because he's racing 4 kids isn't going to make it to one of those 40 seats.
Right.
It's not like NASCAR at the end of the year dumps out all 40 drivers and says we're starting with new drivers next year. It doesn't work like
Right.
that. So every year you're trying to replace what, 2, 3, 4, at the most 6 drivers in a series. The rest of them got solid jobs. So your kid probably isn't going to make it. So let your kid be a kid. If he's passionate about racing, then absolutely be behind it 100%. But if it's your dream and it's not their dream, don't waste your time with it.
Well, and I know. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're gonna waste your money trying to make your kid something that, to your point, may or may not they may not want to be that. So you've taken their whole childhood away from them to live their parents' dream.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's more. And I mean, I think it's more healthy for the local racing scene, the regional racing scene, racing in general. I know NASCAR kind of plays on this illusion that they're the NFL and they try to use sprint cars like a college level and everybody graduates to them or something. I mean, you see what I'm talking about.
They're riding short track racing's coattails is what NASCAR's doing.
Well, exactly. Well, now they're definitely doing it because we got organically popular over the last 30-ish years. Social media has really helped the streaming as well to get popular in front of people's face for the first time, really.
That and people like the product.
The product is good. The sandwich tastes good.
Motor races and what they're seeing and watching these drivers be heroes. Right. So it's organic because it's real. It's tough to be good at that elite level of that.
Yeah, they don't need a fight and some drama or somebody, with the wrong pillar on to get some news and attention.
Yeah, and take 300 horsepower away from them so everybody can drive them.
Yeah.
And nuke these cars.
Well, they only nuke those cars for those rich people. I'm telling you right now, they got to they can't have these people putting all this money into the sport and then put them in a car that they can't make laps in. They can't allow it to happen. That Gen 4, the Gen 4 was to me the last real true race NASCAR Cup car. That I don't know. I don't think 95% of the current NASCAR roster could make a full race at say Atlanta or Darlington or Dover in those cars. Those were race cars. You had to drive those cars.
Yeah, and you learned real quick if you did something that car didn't like, not only did it tell you, but a lot of times you wadded it up too.
I'll put it on the screen real quick. It's the Home Depot Tony Stewart, which everybody remembers that, right? Everybody remembers that.
Well, now it's vintage. It's a vintage car.
But those cars, man, I just felt like those were the last true race cars prior to the COT. And I felt like those cars, you couldn't get in those cars and just go around the track. You couldn't just do that. You had to really know what you were doing with all aspects of driving ability.
The difference with those two is that you actually still had to manage your tires. It wasn't about whether you were a fast race car driver. You had to be a smart race car driver too. You had to know when to press. You had to know when to take care of tires. You had to be smart about how you raced. Now, and unfortunately, this is technology. This isn't good. I used to give Goodyear a super hard time if they screwed the tires up. But Goodyear got put in a really bad spot. I mean, the technology changed a bunch. And literally, when I started driving in Cup Series, the heavier springs were in the front and the soft springs were in the back. Well, then it literally flopped 180 degrees. Somebody figured out that if we get soft springs in the front and put bump stops to get it to stop the travel of it, the soft springs, the air will hold the nose down, and they can do it with rebound in the shocks. And we put the bigger springs in the back and prop the back up. Well, now it gets the spoiler higher in the air, and it just makes this wedge like a sprint car wing. And that changed the whole game. But when they did that, Goodyear was in panic mode because the loads on the tires were drastically different, especially with the bump stops. And we kind of got in that era where you saw a lot of right front tire failures. But it wasn't because Goodyear wasn't doing a good job. It's because the technology changed, the setups changed. Well, they can't predict that and get ahead of it. They have to react to it. So that was the issues that Goodyear had to deal with. And then we got into tires that were so hard. They were trying to build everything just so reliable that you could run a whole stint on tires, which might be 60, 70 laps, and it still had the mold mark in the center of it. But they had to. I mean, it's a marketing tool. If you're a consumer and you got a car and you need to go buy a set of tires for your car tomorrow and you just watched the NASCAR race and 10 guys blew right fronts and
right
over the fence, you're probably not going to stop at the Goodyear dealership tomorrow.
It's at least going to make you mad at them.
Well, it's going to make you question whether you want to do it. But, that wasn't really Goodyear's fault. I mean, but there was a middle ground that was hard to find, and it took a long time to get back to that. But Goodyear did the work and got it there eventually.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that Goodyear tried really hard. I guess they tried really hard with the dirt track side of stuff. It just didn't work out. Hoosier just has that on point, but yeah, that whole NASCAR era once, and obviously they got away from the Gen 4 because of Dale Senior and his accident. You know, the COT was to provide more room and more safety and everything like that for drivers. And then honestly, I know we were just talking about kids coming up and buying rides. The rumor, the rumor mill, at least back in the day, was Joey Logano the first ever to buy a guy out of a ride as a young gun into that
I
20
don't
car?
I don't know who he bought out of it. He
No,
didn't
I'm
buy
just
me.
saying the rumors. Yeah,
No,
he
he
got
didn't
you
buy me
kicked out of
out.
the 20 car because he sliced bread was coming.
No, that was
That's
not
not
the
what
case. Yeah.
happened. You're sure
No, I'm positive, 1000% positive.
he didn't have
So
a friend at this place or that buddy system? No.
not that I'm aware of. I mean, I was the driver that he replaced, so
Right.
I know why I left where I left. I mean, and I remember the day I went in to talk to Joe Gibbs about it. It was time to renegotiate my contract, and I got a call from Rick Hendrick, and he goes, "Hey, I have an opportunity you might be interested in." And I listened to Rick because Gene leased his motors from Rick, bought his chassis from Rick, and it was the opportunity to join Gene Haas and start SHR. So the day that I went in to tell Gibbs that I wasn't going to renew my contract, I mean, Joe was pissed, obviously. And toward the end of the conversation, the one thing that I told him that finally calmed him down that he couldn't really argue with was when I told him, I said, "Joe, this is my opportunity to be like you. I get to be an owner like you are." I said, I'm not going to get to drive forever, and I don't want to leave the sport when I quit driving. So this is my opportunity to be like you. And it was really hard for him. He still wasn't happy about it, and he still was mad about it, but he wasn't arguing with me about it at that point. So, but that had nothing to do. Joey didn't have any influence on that. I didn't even know Joey till actually after I left and they had signed him. That was the first time that I'd met Logano.
Well, and then you got to drive dirt racing again. I mean,
I
how
got
much
to
did
drive
Joe
as much
Gibbs?
as I wanted.
How much did he like? He didn't like it back then. That's when you had to do the Smoke
No.
Johnson deal, right? That's where the smoke was created, where Joe Gibbs wouldn't let you race, and
Yeah.
you did a alias name to run the Chili Bowl. People forget this. I mean, out of sight, out of mind again. But
So obviously my nickname's Smoke, and I was standing there at the Chili Bowl on I think Friday night, and Greg Wilkie and Mark Wilkie and Paul McMahon. I can't remember who else there. Lasowski was there. There were a bunch of us all hanging around, and Wilkie goes, "Hey, I got another car." He goes, "Why don't we just unload it and you can start at the tail of the mains tomorrow, and we'll just see how far you can get." Hell, I didn't have anything else planned. So Ted Johnson was there, and I said, "Well, it's too late to call Joe Gibbs to get permission." So I said, we're gonna have to come up with a different name. So Ted was, I think, the one that actually came up with Smoke Johnson. So I said I was his illegitimate kid at that point.
okay,
But yeah, we started at the tail. I don't remember how many mains they had, but I borrowed Paul McMahon's helmet. I think Dave Darland gave me a pair of shoes to wear, borrowed a uniform from somebody. But I remember one of the mains, I finished the main and I was going up the ramp and somebody jumped out in front of me as I was driving up the ramp to stop me. Well, it was one of McMahon's guys because he's in the lineup chute there with no helmet on because he's got to go out for his hot lap session. And I'm coming off the track with his helmet on already. So poor Paul had to sit there and put this soaking wet helmet on that I've been wearing all afternoon through 3 or 4 mains to do his hot lap deal. But yeah, that is where it started. But Gibbs was not a fan. So Joe had a policy that if I wanted to go run something, I had to call him first. So I remember the first time I wanted to go run something, I bet I had to make 6 phone calls before I finally got a hold of Joe. And man, I mean, he made me feel so guilty for wanting to do it. But you got to remember, Joe was an NFL coach, and they don't let their players go out and play flag football
right.
and stuff, twist an ankle or screw something up, and they're out. And so Joe had that mentality, and so I went and ran the race. And the thing was, I had to call him after, let him know everything was fine. Did that, and the next time I went to call him, I got an opportunity like a day before the event, and I tried him like 3 times, and I'm like, I am not going to just sit here and just keep calling until I get him, and then have to listen to him complain on the phone about me going and racing. So I just went and did it. But I remember the day after I got a phone call, and he goes, "Hey, did you go race last night?" I went, "Yeah." I said, "I did try to call you 3 times though, and didn't get you." But after that, I never even tried calling. I just went racing, and he did not like that at all. And I think it's one of the things that probably about my Cup career that doesn't show on a stat sheet that I'm really proud of is that, guys like Kenny Schrader still went back and ran dirt. And I went back and ran dirt, and to the point to where then it was okay, kind of okay for everybody. And, till somebody gets hurt, and then everybody kind of tightens the reins back. But, now we're even seeing Joe Gibbs finally say, I'm okay with it. And I think that's great for short track racing. I think it's a testament to what it really means brand wise, what these drivers mean. A Christopher Bell, a Kyle Larson, a Chase Briscoe, Alex Bowman, a lot of the Xfinity and truck guys that are going and running modifieds and stuff like David Stremme running with him and those guys, and Kenny Wallace.
Crafton.
There's a lot of guys doing it. Crafton does it. I feel like I had a hand in that. I feel like I helped change the culture of it was taboo for the owners to let their drivers go race, and now it's accepted.
Well, and I think it's also a deal to do with popularity here recently. Kyle got it really popular when he had his situation and went and ran and won all the races he did, and then obviously starting the series and the social numbers. When you talk to a lot of people in the marketing departments, the social numbers of the dirt guys are usually bigger than most of the NASCAR drivers. Until you get to your elites like your Denny Hamlins and stuff like that, but they're right there beating 95% of the Cup field. Is that a part of it too? Like they see kind of the good, like we were saying, the good product, the good tasting burger is starting to get handed around to new people, so we got to get in there and kind of put our arm around it, in a way.
I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was necessarily that. I mean, I know what my approach was. I mean, I was a racer, and I wanted my guys to have the ability to go race, and I liked it from the standpoint, especially like a Pocono weekend, for example. We'd come in Pocono, you'd sit there and you'd do qualifying practice and qualifying on Friday, and then we'd haul ass to the airport, fly to Harrisburg, and drive down to Williams Grove and race Friday night. Come back to the track late, have 2 race practices on Saturday, and then I'd go take a nap in the motorhome after a shower and wait for the garage to close at 3 in the afternoon so that some of the crew guys could go. Then we'd haul ass back to the airport, fly up to Abbotsville and run Lincoln on Saturday night, and then fly back to the track. Race on Sunday, run the whole Cup race, and then get on the plane, fly back to Harrisburg, and then go race at BAPS on Sunday night. And I just think I looked at it from the standpoint that if my car wasn't good on Friday when I qualified, it was easy to sit there and go, we're screwed all weekend. We're stuck here for 2 more days with a shitty race car that we're not going to be able to fix, and it's just going to be a long weekend. But then you could go to Williams Grove, and even if you didn't win the race, or if you didn't even run in the top 5, if you just had a good night, if you can go to PA and have a good night and run in the top 10, man, I showed up with a way better attitude on Saturday morning, and a lot of times it helped, and we were able to get the car a little better. But I think mentality-wise, having drivers just racing all the time makes them better.
Right.
You take a Kyle Larson. That's why Kyle's so good. I mean, Kyle's racing all the time. Kyle Busch, I mean, it makes me so happy to see Kyle Busch racing dirt with his
Yeah.
kid. I mean, never used to do anything on dirt, and now he's ate up with it. And guys like Kenny Wallace that didn't do it. Kenny, if you could have exposed Kenny Wallace to dirt racing before NASCAR, he may not even have went to NASCAR. He's
Right.
having so much fun dirt racing. I love that part of it.
Ty Gibbs, I mean, he gave a shot. I mean, he gave a shot. And I think that's risky for those guys to give a shot because, the premise of a NASCAR driver being like this NFL level guy, and the premise of this dirt stuff being this lower level stuff, like, began with the Shaheen deal. That's kind of the premise for him to come down here and potentially, put that reputation on the line, because if you're in racing, if you get into a 410 wing sprint car and you come over here in the dirt world, you're in for a world of competition, trouble. The cars are difficult. But if you don't know, it could look like, why did this, big time guy just lose a YMCA football game? What happened there?
I you bring up a good point of hurt your reputation, but I feel like there's more value and more opportunity for their reputation to grow if they don't even have to
Street
win a dirt
cred.
race.
Street cred.
Yeah.
It's a street
Night
cred.
at a dirt race and have a respectable night, I guarantee you the dirt community is going, that was impressive.
Yeah.
And then they watch him on Sunday and root for him too, because they're like, this guy might be one of us now. So I don't know. I guess my mentality is different than some of the owners, but I don't think it's as bad as it used to be. I mean, Rick still lets his guys do it. Joe's letting his guys do it. Penske, I don't know if Penske will ever let it happen, to be honest, because if you think back, way back in the day, I mean, Gary Bentonhausen was driving for Penske and got hurt in a dirt race, and that was the end of it. And I don't think any Penske drivers you'll see get an opportunity to run dirt very much. But all in all, I feel like it's accepted now, and it's not a bad thing for these teams and to let their drivers go out and moonlight a little bit.
Well, and I mean, you don't always get injured. I mean, we got some older guys that are pretty good. You know, Lance DeWeese still out there rolling around. Sammy is too. You know, that's the deal with racing and age and things like that. Like even, you know, young guns. You were a Gillette young gun at 27, 28 years old. You know, I think that not to kind of circle around, that's probably when you are young in the racing world. If you were to naturally grow like through a local racing scene and you're able to get properly judged, but then age as well. I mean, when does it really fall off? I mean, it's not a quarterback where you got to get sacked by a 300 pounder. I mean, yeah, there's some physical exertion, but it's not the same as these other stick and ball sports. You know, the skill probably doesn't drop off as hard. I was looking at it last night. Sammy Swindell at 49 years old. Go look at his stats, man. He's 69 now. So we're talking about like 2005. Sammy Swindell was still a bad motherfucker. You know, I mean, at 49 years old in a winged 410 sprint car. Like,
But he was, I mean, he's one of the Mount Rushmores, man. I mean,
he is, but
not everybody at 49 is going to do what he
I
did.
mean,
Not everybody's going to
Kinzer
be
was
like
up in age at that time. I mean, Jack
Really.
Hewitt did it into his ages, you know. I mean, I just don't think racing, even though it seems like once a guy gets up to 40 in NASCAR, they say, "Oh, he's time to retire." I just don't buy that. I just think that's a smokescreen. We got to get one of these kids in here that's pumping millions in every year. We can't just lead them on in Xfinity for 10 years, you know. You got to give
Yeah,
them a
I
seat.
think drivers in Cup can drive a lot longer than guys in sprint cars can and still be good. I
Right.
feel like.
Yeah.
I think it's way harder to be
That
good
Mike
in a
Wallace
sprint.
deal at Daytona was a disgrace for them to not let him race, I thought. But
Well, especially with the policy that now you're just going to let drivers that don't have any experience in a stock car. He said he didn't have enough experience. Well, I guess all the stuff he did before then didn't count, but that's NASCAR being NASCAR at its finest. That's NASCAR doing what they've done the entire history of NASCAR. That's them saying, they had a problem with they made Mike go to anger management or something when he got beat up bad in a parking lot after a concert. And but Mike and NASCAR had some kind of feud and some battle, and that's NASCAR's way of just flexing, like NASCAR does. If they don't like something, they'll just flex on you. And so, you know, they've got some feud, and they're going to come up with some bullshit excuse to not let him try to run and make the Daytona 500. But they make themselves look stupid every time they do something like that, because then you turn around and you let somebody that doesn't have any stock car experience run the race. Now they've had two of them do it this year from a different form of motorsports that don't have any cut background. So you say, well, he doesn't have enough track time, but yet you've let two people drive in the series that have zero experience in NASCAR and how NASCAR works. So it's like the logic that they have blows your mind sometimes.
right, right. And then of course he drove the cars that were the Gen 4s as well, and very
Yeah,
fast race cars that are more difficult than the current vehicle, more than likely.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
That's exactly
but
right.
age is crazy. You know, I mean, when they get up to 40 and I hear, oh, he's getting ready to retire, it's funny to me in a way, especially in cup racing. I mean, sprint car racing, okay, but you got your few outliers. But I
I
think,
think
go ahead.
I think the reason that you hear him talk about that is, people and a lot of people listening tonight probably forget the time when there was no limit on how much you could test.
Mm,
And I remember one year we tested 40 days. So after 20 of the events, 20 of 38 events that we ran, we went somewhere else and tested for 2 days. So that was back in my Home Depot days with Zipadelli, and we would leave early to mid-afternoon on Thursday, go to a Home Depot appearance, do a signing, then fly to the track. You were at the track Friday, Saturday, race on Sunday. Then Sunday, we would all get on the team that would go to the test sessions. We would get on the plane, fly to a different track, test Monday and Tuesday, and you got home Tuesday evening. So that gave you Wednesday off, at home and the morning of Thursday before you started that cycle again. I mean, that's why you retire at 40, because you're wore out. You've lived
Right.
a flat schedule your entire existence in the sport, and carbon monoxide filters weren't as good then. I mean, drivers, they got used up back in that day. So, yeah, it's not hard to understand why guys started retiring a little bit earlier back then, but it's
You could say the
yeah,
Outlaw schedule was rougher, but I mean,
I think it's rougher still,
yeah,
but you're still not in a car for 3.5 hours on Sunday.
that's true. The endurance
There,
side.
go to Darlington on Labor Day
Hmm.
and run 500 miles at Darlington with it hotter than balls. I mean, I remember we'd pour water down our suits from the pit stop. Like we had our drink bottle and they'd hand you a water bottle too. You'd kind of carry that out on the track during the caution, and you had to be real careful how much water you put in the top of your suit, because if it ran all the way down to your butt, we were all in aluminum seats
Boiling,
then.
yeah.
We didn't have carbon fiber seats that were insulated and this and that. You had aluminum seats, and if you got too much water down there, it burnt you, literally cooked you.
Mm.
So, I mean, you think about how rough it was back then and how much harder the races were then than what they are now. I mean, now you got cool shirts and this and that, and they get out of the car and their hair's not even wet. So it's like it's a way different era right now.
Well, and of course, you know that once again, it's kind of back to the product of dirt racing. You know, it's not that endurance style. It's more that quick, fast, in a hurry, aggressive. I guess some would say fun style. You know, Christopher Bell was so damn happy at the Chili Bowl. I mean, he used to be the guy that walked around kind of, you know, mind his own business, get to the trailer, talk to the guys, but he walked around with a smile all over his face this year. He looks like a changed man now that he gets to drive the. I always said it's like the love of his life. You know, he left for the rich guy, but now he's back with the one he loves. You know, in a way, to make the money, and now he can do it again. Is that also transferred into the fan category too? I feel like that is why dirt racing is growing, and that is why you know, NASCAR is slowly going away. Is that the product is sometimes boring? It's not as aggressive. It's not as enjoyable. I could imagine you just described 3 hours at Darlington. There had to be points you're riding around like, I'd love to be doing something else right now. You know, I'm just saying it sounds boring. I mean, it does.
There were times of those long races that you weren't around anybody, and
Yeah,
you
you're
got
just
30
floating.
more laps till you got a pit stop, and so you're still running hard to make time, but it's like you're not really going to go
You're
anywhere. You're
not
going to have a
racing.
caution. It's that's changed, but I do think that's why short track racing's making a run again. It was fun last year going to the drag racing side, and I ran the top alcohol dragster the year before, and it's a sportsman class. We run earlier in the day and later in the day. The pros ran in the middle of the day. And last year when I ran the top fuel car for Leah, met a lot of fans that had never been to a drag race. And they said, but we came to watch you. And I said, well, come back at the end of the day and tell me what you think, because they hadn't seen a run yet. And the overwhelming response that I got from people that had never been to a drag race, that were diehard NASCAR fans that knew us from that aspect, came by at the end of the day and said, we had no idea what it was like and how cool it was. And I told him, I'm like, that's why we ran sprint cars too. So it doesn't mean that you still can't be a NASCAR fan, but now you can be a drag race fan. You can be a dirt track fan and still watch NASCAR if you love NASCAR. But there's fans that are bailing from NASCAR and just want to go short track racing or go drag racing now. I meet
Right.
them every week, and I love hearing them support dirt track racing, because obviously that's my passion is the dirt. So to hear fans, I hate to see that they're going away from something else. I mean, NASCAR and I don't get along, and I don't give two shits that they don't like me, and doesn't matter to me either way. But I don't want to see him lose it, because it's got a rich history too. I mean, there were things that were great about that sport, and there's still things that are great about it. But to hear people say that they like short track racing, dirt track racing, and watch sprint cars, or they like going to the drag races, I love that, because just because it's bigger doesn't mean it's better. So for fans to have the opportunity to sit there, and now, if nothing else, even if they still want to watch NASCAR on Saturday or Sunday, they still have the opportunity to go watch something else, and it just broadens their motorsports horizon. So I feel like in the big picture, it just makes it stronger for all of us.
Well, and it definitely opens up the doors. You know, when I went to the NHRA race, the one thing that Yeah, it didn't take me back because I mean I've been everywhere, but the broadness of diversity at these drag
Mhm.
racing events. It ain't just the old guy in the ball cap. There's all walks of life at these different events, and I've seen that uptick happen in sprint car racing as well. With popularity comes curiosity from everybody at all walks of life, which I do think could help this sport. In a way, to broaden out there because I think especially dirt track racing, I think that form, the wing 410 at least, the form of aggression and the visual, um, just the closing rates that they're able to pull off sometimes that just look so visually appealing with the sprint car in the oval, the slide jobs, the style of racing. I think I don't think a lot of people seen it. I think it's still in the dark in a majority sense. I mean, you go up and talk to people about a dirt track or a sprint car race, they think you're talking about dirt bikes. A sprint car is a Miata, or something. They don't know what it is. That's when I get a little upset because it's just like you got this badass sport, you got the talent that is just so crazy, and the only way the David Gravel is going to make it on ESPN is if he goes in the corner and don't come out. And that's a messed up part about the relevance of the sport, in my opinion. It deserves more respect and credibility.
Absolutely, but that's why it's important to have Kenny Schrader and Kenny Wallace and Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell and Briscoe and Bowman and all these guys going and running dirt tracks. It gets that attention. It's drawing that attention to the dirt track side, and as long as we can keep doing that, you can't lead them all to water. But the ones that you do lead to water, it very rarely have I heard somebody watch a sprint car race and go, "I didn't get it. I didn't like it."
Do you think
I've,
it's
I've
possible to go
never.
around NASCAR? I think that there are other elements of marketability that I think you could sometimes, and my point here is saying is sometimes when you ask a person like, "What's football?" It's NFL. Well, if I don't think the NFL, if I watch an NFL game and I think NFL sucks, I don't like football. If I watch an NBA game and I don't like NBA, I don't like basketball. I think racing gets kind of smeared by if I don't like NASCAR, I don't like racing. So I feel like you could
Yeah.
get a lot of, but if you showed them this, if I only got to watch NASCAR, I probably wouldn't be a damn race fan. So I'm agreeing with you. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm just saying I like the dirt stuff. That's what makes me a fan of motorsports. I think
Well, the
that's how I'm
difference is
saying you could go.
the
Go ahead.
the game's the same for football and basketball and baseball. The game is absolutely the same. There's
Hmm.
not different rules.
Hmm.
You know, the fields are the same, the courts are the same. It's the same game. NASCAR is a different game than short track dirt track racing. The
Racing
sprint,
is. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
So that's the great thing is the style of racing is so diverse. But then you have the diversity in it now that you know you mentioned that drag racing probably has the most
hmm.
diverse fans and
Hmm.
driver lineups. I mean, I think there was one race I ran last year with the Top Fuel car that there were four women in Top Fuel that weekend. I mean, you don't see that anywhere else.
Hmm.
But you aren't going to take Danica Patrick and throw her in a 410 wing sprint car and even get her in the B main.
No,
She's not going to B main.
no.
You aren't going to do that. But there's, Jade, and I screw up Jade's last name every time I try.
Abadici.
I love watching
She's
her.
good. It
I
seems like she's not going the dirt route, which I think is very unfortunate. But
I do too, but at least she started there and she proved herself there. But I mean, she's legit. I feel like she's a legit female race car driver, and I think there's a couple others out there that are as well. And then I think there's others out there that are playing the I'm the beautiful female card. And shit, why not? I mean, if you can do it, if it gets you the opportunity, use it absolutely because
yeah,
it's
but I
hard to
think
get the
that's
opportunity.
slowly like digressing. That's not being as sellable. I think that
Well,
people
at
like
some
the
point you're
town.
gonna have to you're
What?
still gonna have to prove yourself at some point.
Yeah, yeah,
It might
yeah.
get your foot in the door, but at some point you're going to have to be able to kick ass out there and show results. And that's something that Jade has done multiple times. And to see her now doing it in a pavement late model, I mean, I think that is badass.
I'd like to
To,
see her in a 410 or 360. I was high on
yes.
some other female drivers out of midgets before, and one of them did go off and run a 360 race. And I know guys who are racing locally that smoked her. And it's like, wow. Midgets is one of those divisions that have changed over the years. When you were coming up in it, and I've had old veterans say, when did they turn my, professional race car into developmental vehicle? And I've always joked and called the USAC National Midgets kindergarten with the PE teachers of T Mez and Justin Grant in there, trying to teach them how to do it. But I just don't think they get tested enough in the midgets on the dirt level. You know, when they get to Chili Bowl, they go ghost most of the time because real drivers come into the building. That's what happens, in my opinion. So I would like to see these guys get into the 410s and the 360s to see what they really got. But if they can keep up the illusion that they're really good by doing that in the midgets and then going to NASCAR and carrying the credibility, then that's the ultimate goal, I guess.
I think the reason I'm such a fan of Jade is
I think she's good. I think she's good. Really good. Really good.
when I saw her in the midget, I saw her drive. I didn't even know it was. I had no idea it was a female driving it. I mean, I was watching. I'm like, man, I don't know who that is, but I'm watching them.
Very aggressive.
I like watching her style. And then I saw a couple interviews, and I saw a couple times when she got in an altercation with somebody, and I saw that look in her eye, and I'm like, that is a race car driver. That's a pure race car driver right there. But I think the thing now that I like about her is now she's going in a stock car route and she's having success. I mean, it's not that she's just a midget driver and won some races that all the big guys weren't necessarily at. She's out there winning in a whole different type of car that has a whole different skill set. That tells me she has talent. So I'm with you, though. I'd love to see her in a 360 or 410 wing car and see what she could do. It's definitely a different game, but it's encouraging to see that she's driving something totally different than a midget and having the same success that she had over there.
Yeah, and I think drivers are drivers. I think talent is talent. You know, I know somebody joked on the comments a couple weeks ago and said I was talking crap about NASCAR, and they said David Gravel's a failed NASCAR driver. Oh, it was Larson versus Gravel. They said Gravel's a failed NASCAR driver. I said the only NASCAR race David Gravel ever had was COVID with no practice, no time in the car, jumped in the car, qualified 14th in a truck at Michigan, and then finished 10th. If Haley Deegan could have had that consistency, she'd be a Cup star. I mean, there is just talent. Like, that's a very impressive first go at NASCAR racing with no practice, nothing.
Exactly. It's way different. Everything you do with your hands and feet, driving a wing car versus driving a cup car, drastically different driving styles. So to sit there and that guy to say that, that's a guy that's probably still living in his mom's basement,
Right.
eating her food and shit. So he's
right. Well, adaptability is also, I think, what makes the elites elites. That's what separates some of the best, the ones who can just jump in and figure it out. I remember one story with you. I guess it was one time you jumped in a super modified and ran a line that nobody ever ran and drove through the field and won it or something like that. I mean, that's what I mean as far as adaptability, you know.
Yeah, it's, and I think if a driver's ever going to get to an elite level, you don't start there. You don't start in those cars. So it's not like you ever get a chance just to start and learn those cars. You have to earn your way to it. Now, some of them get their way paid for them and get their foot in the door that way, but you have to have that adaptability. I mean, that's what makes a good race car driver a good race car driver. I mean, a dirt track, you might start on the top and you might move to the bottom and finish on the top again by the end of it. You have to adapt. You have to have that gut instinct of knowing when to move and when the pace has changed, when the groove has changed. That's just instincts, and you can't teach that. You can't teach that to these guys. That's something that you're born with, and that's what I love about watching Larson. I mean, I'm probably one of the biggest Kyle Larson fans the world has, and most people don't even realize it.
I say he's one of the best drivers all the time. He is. He's one of the greatest drivers of all time. There's no debating it. I'm not debating that. I still do think that there are a lot of guys who are just as good that don't get the same opportunities as he does. And we need to start giving it's back to the sprint car late model fan base. You know, we need to start giving envy to other guys and separate the two logically. You know, some people will say Kyle Larson drives all these different cars and does all these different things. But at the same time, 3 years ago, you could have had the debate on who's better, Bell or Larson. But now because Larson got opportunities more than Bell, now he gets to be put in another category technically. It's all opportunity based though, because the only separation there is the opportunity. Who else gets to drive all these cars? First of all, you know, we ain't picking up the football and throwing it all the same.
Yeah. I remember being at Atlanta, and Larson and I were in my motorhome, and we were watching a Western States race. And he was like, hey, we got to make sure we catch this. And I'm like, it's a Western States USAC race. What are we so excited about? And he goes, there's a guy in here you got to watch. And I'm like, really? And I said, who's that? He goes, Christopher Bell. And I'm like, I've never heard of him. He goes, he's better than me. And I've never heard Kyle Larson say anybody was better than him. And I've never heard Kyle Larson say I'm the best either.
Now, was he joking?
No.
Okay, he
No,
was
he was
serious.
dead
Okay.
serious. That's the reason we watched that night, was to watch Christopher Bell. And he goes, he's better than me. So yeah, I think give Christopher an opportunity in the late model, he'd figure it out.
Right.
I mean, but he hasn't. But
And
not
well, my
everybody.
point is, how many other guys are just as on that level? They just, at 16, they didn't get picked up by a TRD. At this age, they didn't have this opportunity. You know, talent can't be taught. You know, it is a natural deal out there. Look at Ricky Thornton Jr. I think he's one of the last guys who have technically made it to the top in his division on talent. I mean, he put a IMCA modified on a flatbed at like 22 and went off and just won his way literally to where he is today.
I think every generation has a certain number of it. I mean, Kyle is this generation, and Christopher's right behind him in that. Every generation had it. I mean, Jeff Gordon was that generation, and I was the generation after that. Even though Jeff and I were the same, I was like a half a generation behind him. And when Jeff left, then there wasn't that guy. And then I got that opportunity and had my Triple Crown year in USAC. You know, Kyle's just that guy in this era. You know, the fun thing is, you know, we talked about AFC and UFC and all this stuff and trying to get everybody together. If you sit there and have the opportunity to take the best of all these generations and put them all, that's the race. That's the race. If we all get to go to heaven at the end of the day, that's my dream, is to sit there and race against the best of every era and put those guys together and all get to race together. That's when you see how good everybody really is. Because when Richard Petty was in his heyday, those cars were way different to drive and manhandle back then than they are right now. You know, what I'm driving, what this guy, it's really hard to compare who's the greatest of all time. You can't really do it because there's so many variables that are different in the equation. But every generation you can say that's the greatest. That's the greatest of that generation in that time. And Kyle's that guy right now. I mean, you're right. Trust me, I've seen it. There's guys left and right that can drive race cars that don't get opportunities. You know,
well, and at least in the late model world, you have opportunity to race your way to the top. I just feel like when we're putting NASCAR and IndyCar and all that, it's almost impossible for a regular person to go get a job, work it, get a college degree, and then get there. It's like impossible. Or at least in the late model world, they got a chance, you know, to do that.
Well, and I think there is in all forms of motorsports, but there's not many chances and opportunities. I mean, guys, it is hard to get those opportunities to get with good teams. But the hard part is by the time you work your way up into a good car, it was like you mentioned earlier, when I was 25 and getting my cup season started, hell, I was old in today's standards. So
that's not right.
How do you find those guys now? How do you go back and find this guy at 12 or 14 and know whether he's really the deal?
It's a broken system. I think that's a broken system, how it's set up right now. It's attuned to one side, but I also think that's a fan deal. You know, I think the sponsors started playing more of a fact than winning, you know, and funding for teams, the proper funding for cup teams in general went away from winning and performing to sponsorship dollars. And that's how we operate, is how we can afford. I think that's why they want to restructure all the charters so they can get proper funding to the team, so they ain't just depending on some driver to bring money. But, you know, back to the whole situation, like Larson and Bell and these drivers and stuff like that, you know, I think sprint car racing's missing out. I think that, you know, I mentioned to you yesterday when we talked, you know, Steve Kinser won 50K at the Kings Royal when Dale Sr. won 47 in 1984. So there was a period when sprint car drivers were sometimes bringing checks in bigger than some cup guys. Not all the time. Obviously, they still had their Daytona 500, probably paid more than that. But this was a regular cup race. You know, I always had the theory that Cole Trickle killed the sprint car star, because I don't think Kinser was second tier to anybody in cup racing, and Ken Schrader was racing at that time in cup as well, with Rick Hendrick in the 25, I think, after Richmond. But it seemed like that icon shifted, and since then, the big name has been the transfer driver, the guy who goes, the guy who leaves. And that credibility isn't given to the sprint car star. The pay isn't given as much. It hasn't increased as much as we've all liked, obviously. and costs are way more. 50,000 to win in 1984. A brand new dually was 6,500. You know, the best
Right.
dually on the block. A Corvette was 12 grand. So I mean, you know, it was different back then. I think we are missing out because we don't pay or have enough money in sprint car racing to retain, in my opinion, our modern Swindell and Wolfgang. Maybe we'll say that David Gravel is our Steve Kinser in the sprint car world right now. Let's say that, you know, if you were to add Bell and Larson in on our tour right now, we'd have one of the best. Our product all of a sudden just destroyed every product in the block, and I think NASCAR knows that. And
I'm
Corey
telling
Day,
you,
bring Corey Day back too. Now we got
yeah.
a product that is bigger, or the best product you can have in motorsports.
If the money was equal, I am telling you, and I'm not going to speak for Kyle because Kyle and I've never had this conversation, but I feel very confident in this statement that if the money was equal, that Kyle Larson would be in a sprint car, not in a cup car. I feel the same way about Christopher Bell. I feel the same way about Chase Briscoe. And like I said, I've never had a conversation with any of these guys about it. That's my gut instinct. I'm saying that's what my gut tells me, is that if the money was equal, they would be on dirt. They would not be in NASCAR right now.
Right. Well, you think some people would
Very
see the
confident about
investment in that? Flo's got 100 million in capital. Let's spend it. I mean, there's your fix in a way. I mean,
but it's something that you get to make a difference. I mean, shit. They've never, my whole time in Cup, we never had motors that had the same horsepower as a sprint car motor. But then NASCAR went and neutered these things and got down to this 550 horsepower package, and I don't know what they're up to now. They're around 600 or a little over that. I mean, when they cut it, we were at the peak when I was still running. We were up at 800, around 875 horsepower. And when they cut it down to 775, I felt like I was racing a Briggs and Stratton, and it pissed me off so bad. I'm like, everything that made me good in a car was my right foot and being able to modulate and manage the power and take care of my tires. Well, you just keep taking power away, and then when the guys leave the corner, they just flat foot it. It doesn't take anything. So
yeah.
it takes all the power you can get it because it doesn't have any power. So now you've taken bad race car drivers and made them okay. You've taken okay race car drivers and made them good. And you've taken a handful of the good race car drivers and put them in a great category.
And you can make an okay race car driver in a really good car look better than a really good race car driver in a bad car. You know, look at Kyle in the 42 car. Look at Kyle in the Ganassi ride. I mean, I don't think he got better just because he said a bad word and won some dirt races. He got into a Hendrick car.
Right, exactly.
You know? And I think that's what's happening currently with Kyle Busch, personally. I don't think he's lost an ounce of talent. He's just not in one of those premier cars.
You put Kyle Busch in a premier car, he's going to go out and win races just like he always has.
Right. But it's the cinematics, maybe. You know, they don't want that. They want the cinematic of Kyle Busch is slowly leaving and retiring and going to go play with dirt.
If he's smart, he would. I mean, if I were Kyle Busch, he has nothing left to prove. And if I were him, I'd go race with his kid on dirt and go have a blast, because it looks like genuinely when you watch those guys at the racetrack, they have a good time. They're having fun racing again. And I don't know. It's part of the thing that I love NASCAR, as much as I can't stand NASCAR, I'm very appreciative, because if it wasn't for my NASCAR time, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to buy Eldora. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to buy the All-Star Series. I wouldn't have had the chance to have TSR start its 25th year in motorsports this year. I mean, none of that would have happened if I didn't have the opportunity to race in NASCAR. And for everything that I don't like about NASCAR, there's something that I love about NASCAR as well. So, yeah, I'm hard on NASCAR right now. I think they make a bunch of unnecessary mistakes that don't make sense. And it's not one thing I learned from Mike Helton. Mike Helton is one of the most influential people in my life to this day. And one thing that I remember he taught me a long time ago is he goes, don't make it personal. This isn't a me versus somebody else thing. This is just me going, I don't like the direction they're going, and there's a lot of variables. Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell and these guys, if you gave them horsepower, they would annihilate.
Well, the drivers would come up. The drivers would show through.
And then, I mean, you start taking all this horsepower away. Now you got teams that couldn't even compete that all of a sudden now are competitive. It's like, the hell did we do here? They didn't just get smarter.
Right.
They didn't all of a sudden just get great. but you
Well,
give
and the
them
new car was supposed to prevent
somebody
the
else's
super
shot.
teams. It's supposed to prevent the super teams from being so super, but they're still just a super. I think Hendrick is 4 of the
But
5.
that's why NASCAR's losing popularity. When you can make everybody the same, what's to make Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell and all the elite drivers, the Ryan Blaney's, the Joey Logano's that are the elite drivers. Now a guy that sucks or isn't that good has the same opportunity to win the Daytona 500 that they do. Your biggest race of the year, and everybody's got the same shot. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be that way. Your elite teams and elite drivers should be racing for the elite wins. And it doesn't mean that the other teams shouldn't participate, but when you make it so equal that now there's nothing the last pit stop's what changes the game and sets it up. That's not the way it should be. The
Well,
damn way in sprint car racing and late model racing.
no, no. I mean, I think their product is just too far gone. I mean, it's just too far gone. They're not doing the right things to fix it. It seems like they're appeasing cliques and members and groups more so than the overall need. I've always said that the buddy system runs the entire world, and it probably runs the racing world too.
I think the wild thing too, though, is, I mean, I think all of us from the dirt track side, there's things that we appreciate about dirt track racing that we see a lack of in NASCAR. But there's another group over here that may watch pavement late models, for example, and think NASCAR is the greatest thing in the world. You take 10 of us and put 10 people together, we're all going to have 10 different opinions, but it just seems like the overwhelming response from the dirt track community is the same. They see the same things, and the things that they see that they don't like are because they know what they like about watching dirt track racing and recognizing the talent of the drivers and the cars and what the teams do. So it,
It's like we get another opinion, you know.
yeah, it's like you're trying to push a rope all the time. It's like I know back in the day there were times I was absolutely 100% right with an argument with NASCAR, and Mike put his hand on my shoulder and go, "But you don't see it from the other angles." And just because I'm right on this side doesn't mean it's right doesn't mean that there should be a change, because there's this, and this variable are the reason that it has to be that way.
It's almost like NASCAR plays the game, though. I feel like they like back to their product on the track isn't always the best, so they depend on the fight in the infield or some kind of drama or some kind of rule change that isn't popular to get everybody. Seems like they get popularity based on everybody complaining about them most of the time.
I I I can tell you this for a fact. Anytime that there's a fight after a race, NASCAR is going cha-ching. And
Right?
the track,
They love it.
whoever the host track is the next week is going cha-ching. The network is going cha-ching.
They had the ring,
Because,
Eddie Gossage, TMS.
yeah,
You know,
I mean, that's why we tell all the drivers at Eldora, if you want to fight, you can fight. Fight on the front stretch. There's no penalties, no fines, but it's just the drivers. The two drivers are the only ones, and do it at the start finish line. Give the people in the crowd that paid the money. If you want to give them a show, give them a show. But you aren't going to do it back in the pits.
unless it's Bubba and Kyle. Unless it's Bubba and Kyle.
I was so mad at Kyle Larson, and I said, I can't. I was mad. I'm like, don't ever let him do that to you again. He told me, bless his heart, I love Kyle. He goes, I've never been in a fight in my life, and he goes, I didn't want to get my ass kicked in front of all those people.
Yeah.
That's a guy thinking.
Well, but that's everybody, right? I mean, every fight. I mean, people who have been in fights, I think they will tell you that you're not the edge of scared and excited is like right there, and anger and everything. The baddest ass fighter in the world still has that fear of embarrassment. They don't want to get knocked out in front of everybody.
I don't know, man. My fights, I didn't care who was around, and I didn't care if I got knocked down. I mean, when I was little, I grew up in a great neighborhood, by the way, but I was one of the younger boys in the neighborhood, and I got my butt kicked a couple times because I said something I shouldn't have said. But I also sat there and realized, if you're going to fight, you better fight to win, and you better not worry about who's watching. You better pay attention to the guy you're fighting. It's not a hobby of mine. I don't like going and getting in fights.
Did you get
But if
the
I'm gonna get in
circles
a fight,
around y'all? Everybody cheering fight, or
it
no?
wasn't
You
it
never got
wasn't
one of
like that.
those. You never
It
got like an
just would break
audience.
out. No, it would just break out, and there were no cell phone cameras, so nobody was out there running around trying to get video footage of it
See,
and
I'm
all
a
that.
'90s kid. I grew up in the ghetto. I always, somebody steals my bike, I go and find it, whoop his ass, and then the cousins come and get you. And then you get kicked in the ground and everything, and now you're in that. So
And you still lose your bike.
and
So
well, no, the respect is still there. It's just a little more animalistic, but
yeah,
no.
I still think a lot of things would get solved if NASCAR would just let the drivers get out and sort it out amongst themselves.
Although
Just let them
Bubba
fight.
Wallace receives a lot of hate, undeserved hate. I think in a way he is the only guy to beat Kyle Larson at Eldora in a truck.
Mm. Mm. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, most people don't.
Yeah,
I always like getting I call them Larsonites, these psychotic Larson fans. Anytime you say anything different, I mean anything different than he's God, they get mad, and I
oh
always
yeah.
have that one in my pocket to pull out, and that melts their face.
Yeah, here's the thing. I mean, that's what I love about race fans in general. Their guy is their guy, and
Hmm.
it's no different than NFL fans. I feel like NFL fans are just as mental.
And we need
About,
those people, though. Think about that. How many we got? We got 32 major cities of millions of with football. Your example, we got 32 major cities of multi millions of people. That crazy.
and there's nothing I like more than watching a race fan that has their favorite driver shirt on, and the driver that they don't like, somebody walks by with their shirt on, and it's like you're just like, here it comes, and it never happens. They don't fight like that like they
Right.
do at football games, but it. I love that our fans are passionate. I mean, and it's reality. The reality of it is they're living their life through us. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
every weekend, what we do and the passion we have is their passion. I mean, they adopt our mentality, our passions, they like you because there's something they can relate to,
Right.
something in their life, whether it's your blue collar guy and they're a blue collar worker, and or you grew up with nothing and they grew up with nothing. There's something about every driver that makes that fan latch onto them. And once they're a fan, man, they're a diehard fan. I mean, I've met fans that have got in more fights with people over me than I have over me.
Right.
So it's and you go, man, I wish you didn't have to do that, but I mean, I appreciate the fact that you care enough to want to fight for my honor like that.
Well, and there is some interesting egos in the dirt world, at least sprint car side. I'd say that it seems like they want everyone to like them. Any little criticism can hurt their feelings. There's a lot of sensitivity. I feel like the late model world's different. But once again, they envied Scott Bloomquist, where we're over here envying Gordon and the cookie cutter NASCAR media molded person they put y'all out to be. So they're trying to act like them. Uh, I feel like the late model world's great with dealing with criticism and,
Yeah.
public. Look at Bobby Pierce, probably the closest thing to the newest Scott Bloomquist. I mean, I don't know Pierce people. You either love that guy or you hate Pierce. They hate Pierce or they love Pierce. The sprint car world seems a little more, touchy. I don't know if it's because they're all small little people and they're, it's some kind of short man thing. I mean, you're stocky at least. You and Lasowski. I mean, but I don't know what it is. They seem sensitive to criticism today.
Yeah, they sprint car guys, they need to get double cheeseburgers. They don't need to be eating salads. They need to be eating more double cheeseburgers because you could take half the sprint car field and even my honest shaped bass could go whip half of them right now.
I,
I mean,
I
they're just
mean,
they're
they always got a
skinny.
tire changer on the team though that's ready to handle
Oh yeah,
business.
there's always
There's always
somebody.
one guy. I've learned this the hard way.
When we used to go dirt late model racing, the team I drove with always had a pair of brass knuckles in the top center drawer. So when shit went down, you went to the top center drawer and it was right there front and side, and you grabbed them quick.
Right.
So that equalizes a jack handle and equalizes a guy that weighs 300 pounds a
Right.
lot
It's
of
like
times.
David Gravel's 5'3" and 110 pounds, but Cody Jacobs goes from a well trained. He's like
Cody
a
might as
German
well weigh
Shepherd,
400
man.
pounds.
German Shepherd.
If shit's going to go down at a sprint car race, Cody Jacobs is the first guy I want on my side on that because Cody will throw down, won't even think about it, and he'll throw down. And when he lands something, it's going to land hard and solid. It's not going to be one of these limp wristed NASCAR fist throwing deals.
Or well, that's one of those guys you need a Coke bottle like you did with Logano. The Coke bottle, throw it at him or something. That
I
might
mean,
help.
yeah, he threw a water bottle at
Or
me.
a
It's like,
water
come
bottle. Yeah, the water bottle. Did you
on, a
catch
half
it? Do
drink
you have
water
it
bottle.
still?
Huh?
Do you have that bottle still? I feel like that's like a piece of history.
No, but I about fired one of Danica Patrick's fuel guys, the guy that gas can, we stopped. I got him stopped at our pit, right in front of her pit. I didn't know that's where it was at, but he grabbed me by the back of my uniform, picked me up like that, and pulled me away. And I said, "Listen, bud," I said, unless I'm getting my ass whipped," I said, "you never grab me out of that again." I said, "That's how you get fired from this organization." And this guy, I mean, this guy's big enough to beat my ass by himself, and his eyes were about that big. But I got my point across. I said, unless I'm just absolutely getting annihilated over here, I'm in this fight. You let me do this deal. I'll handle
Right.
it. I'll
Right.
handle the consequences that come with it. I know exactly what I'm putting myself into, and I appreciate. But the crew guys need to just stay out of it and let the drivers handle it.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's when it gets to next level for sure. And criticism, back to that topic just a little bit, I feel like a lot of guys could learn from you. I'm sure the criticism and the fake news and what you
Well,
showing me
I
yesterday,
died.
you're
Yeah,
58
I'm
years
dead.
old or whatever. You're dead. You showed me
Yeah.
yesterday that you died.
I, I think 5 days ago is when that went out. I'm dead, apparently. Didn't say what I died from, just said that I'm dead.
Right.
So,
Well, some
but
of
I
the
passed
things,
away.
I think people think money comes, fame comes, and everything's beautiful. I'm sure your life hasn't always been beautiful.
Yeah, it's been kind of eye-opening the last couple of years for me because trust me, I mean, I remember when I got into it with Kenny Irwin Jr. at Martinsville, and the next week at driver intros, Earnhardt was the guy right in front of me, and then when I went up, it was the first time I got booed and cheered at the same time, and we had to get in the truck. Dale and I had to get in the truck together, do the parade lap and wave and all that crap, and I was really down. I mean, I'd never heard that before. And Dale's laughing. He goes, "What's the matter?" I said, "Man, I've never been booed before." He goes, "Well, you finally made it, kid." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, who went after you?" And I think it was Ted Musgrave or Kevin LePage or somebody that went behind us. And he goes, "What did the crowd do?" I said, "Nothing." He goes, "Exactly." He goes, "What happened when I went across?" I said, Half of them cheered, half of them booed." He goes, "What happened when you went across?" He goes, "Half of them cheered, half of them booed." He goes, "You've made it." He goes, "Even the ones that don't like you care about you enough to respond when you got announced. If the ones that don't like you cared about you to make noise." So he goes, "That's when you realize you've actually made it in the sport." And so it's Scott Bloomquist was exactly the same way. People either
Right.
loved him or they hated him. Timez, they love him or hate him.
Hmm.
Thornton, they love him or hate him. Bobby Pierce, they love him or hate him. Well, I'm telling you, when you got 100% of the people reacting when you get introduced, even if 70% of them are booing you, you mean something to them. You
Right.
mean something to them to make them respond, and you're part of the damn show. They either came. That was the great thing about Scott Bloomquist. If Scott was there, people either came to watch him win or they came to see somebody else beat him. One of the two. But he was the show. He was the reason those people came to
Right.
watch that.
Well, and I mean, not just that racing stuff. I mean, you personally have probably been through all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah,
I
I guess I
mean,
got sidetracked. Yeah,
it's fine. It's fine to get sidetracked. It's fine.
a couple of years ago when we announced that that Leah was going to was going to start the family, and I was going to drive the top fuel car. I had shoulder surgery, and I'm left-handed, so my left shoulder got operated on, so I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even sleep in bed. I laid in a recliner for 2.5 weeks because that's the only place I could get relief. And so, I'm hacking on the computer and I'm looking at all the drag racing sites to see, what the industry's saying about it. Are they excited about it? Do they not like it? What's the deal? And I read comments, "Oh, I'm ruining Leah's career." Um, you read all kinds of stuff, and it's the thing I kind of learned about it. I actually got a friendship out of the deal, which was really ironic and odd. And there's this guy that every drag racing site, I saw something negative, this guy, and I'm a POS and this and that. And so I finally just direct messaged the guy and I said, what's the problem? Have we met somewhere? Or what's going on? And when I got the guy to finally realize that it was me that he was talking to, he told me, I said, "Listen, I don't care what the story is. Just tell me what it is. I just want to understand it." And it went clear back to a cup race in 2006 that I
Wow.
blew him and his wife off in a group of people when I was walking from pit road or walking from the garage to the trailer after practice, and I was pissed off because my car was bad or something like that, and it wasn't the best time in my life. I mean, the one thing that if I could go back and change anything in my life, I'd have been a lot nicer to people, because if I was having a bad day at the racetrack, everybody around me was having a bad day, and all those people didn't deserve that. That part I would go back and change. But out of that, um, I told him, I said, I don't remember that day, but I said, there's not 1% of me that doesn't believe that that's exactly what happened, because I remember those days and that's the way I was. I said, I'd like to make it up to you. So I invited him to Pomona to come hang out in our hospitality at the race. And oddly enough, he was there last fall, the weekend that Leah had the baby, and he was the last person I talked to in hospitality when I left to go to the airport to see Leah, and before Dom was born. But now we're actually friends, and he sent me a Christmas card at the end of the year, and a photo we took at Pomona at the end of the year was one of the photos on his collage of his Christmas card with him and his wife. And so there's a lot of those situations that, I think a lot of the comments that you'll read on these trash internet sites that are, all they do is just cut and paste all your quotes and put it in something, and they're getting paid for it. But I think there's a lot of people that hate us on there just because of something I did to them in the past. And I wish I could go back and change that. But at the same time, you look at somebody like a Jimmy Johnson, I don't think it's always something that I've done. Jimmy Johnson was so successful and won 7 championships, and there were people that hated his guts. And it's like, what's there to hate about Jimmy Johnson? He's
Right.
literally one of the nicest guys in all of motorsports, and just a genuine good person. But they just don't like people that win too. So they like somebody else. They don't like the guy that's beating them, and you get that trash talk all the time. But some of it's self-inflicted, and some of it's just, unfortunately, it's what comes with the game of I guess to a certain degree being a celebrity. I guess in motorsports is
Right.
you're going to find people that just don't like you for whatever reason. I mean, and it doesn't have to be anything you did. It's just, that's just their opinion. And but that's the great thing about motorsports. I'm like, hey, if you don't like me, I don't, that's great. That's fine. I don't give two shits about it. There's 30 other guys over there you can pick from. Pick the one you do like.
Right.
That's what this is all about. And that's what creates that excitement when you got Bobby racing against Ricky Thornton, and you got, you know, Kyle racing against Gravel and these guys. I mean, that's what these people come to see, and that's the entertainment that they get. So as much as it can be annoying, I mean, I finally just I went through it all winter again this past winter, and finally just said, screw it. I deleted every one of these trash sites that I got people talking shit on us. It's like, I'm not wasting my time with them. It's, if I had a bad experience with somebody and somebody wants to tell me about it at a racetrack, I'll absolutely listen and do what I can to make it right. But aside from that, if you don't like me just because you don't like me, hey, so be it. But I don't have to sit there on the computer and on the internet and read your bullshit.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the unfortunate, thing that always seems to get brought up is that Ward situation. We got it even just posting about you coming on, I've always looked at that, people can have their opinions or whatever on what and all this and the other, but I think something that is missing when people think about that, and even for you, it had to be one of the most insane, crazy experiences of your entire life. I mean, accidental, purposeful, whatever, there's still a car that you were in that a person is gone from.
Well,
There's no one else watching. My point is, no one else watching this
right.
or commenting or shit talking has actually been in a situation where somebody's life was lost, accidental or purposeful. If I accidentally hit a damn dog, I would feel like shit. If
Sure.
I'm mowing around ant piles outside, I don't want to destroy what they built. You know, Outside of that, accidental. Nobody's accidentally done, not too many people at least. That has to be a huge burden, or at least a huge something you think about that you can't get out of your mind. That memory, that lifespan of that time period, whatever happened, the inside feeling of experiencing that has to still be so intense. Imagine the feeling the next morning. I could only mind blowing after something like that happens to be you.
It definitely, and I'm going to use Richard Petty on this example. When I went to Atlanta, and I didn't race that weekend, but I went to the track, and I remember, Harvick came in my motorhome, and there were 2 other drivers in the motorhome at the time, and Richard came over and came in and took me back to the bedroom in the motorhome away from everybody. And I didn't know his story. I didn't know that there was a year that he had went away from NASCAR because the OEM he was driving for pulled out of NASCAR at that time. So they sent him drag racing that year, and an accident happened and it killed somebody. And the one thing that Richard told me, he goes, as much as it doesn't seem like it right now, he goes, as time goes on, you'll think about it less and less. And when you do think about it, you'll spend less time thinking about it. And it's that way, but this is something that's never going away.
Right.
I wasn't to read the bullshit that people put on the internet about, oh, he was trying to intimidate him, or he was mad and he threw a temper tantrum. Mad about what? I was running my 5th sprint car race since I blew my leg out and almost died at Oskaloosa and about bled out at the racetrack. I was just happy to be there. My cup crew chief was with me. I had a sponsor and his wife with me. I remember winning the heat race, and I was the first person that got to redraw for the A, and the top 12 got to redraw for the top 12 spots. I was the first person to stick my hand in the bag, and I drew the 12. And I went back, and Jimmy Carr looked at me, and I was just laughing. I'm like, well, I still can't draw worth a shit. I drew 12, and we didn't care. I didn't give a shit where I finished in that race.
Right.
I was happy to be back in a sprint car doing what I love doing. And didn't know Kevin. Our cars never touched. We never made contact. And you come around the next lap and you're looking at the car going, that's the guy I just passed. What happened? And then you turn your head and there he is. So
Right.
for all these people to say all the bullshit that they're saying, it's just bullshit.
Well, the logical ish ones try to say, well, you were trying to intimidate the guy, throw some. We see it all the time where people are trying to throw dirt. So that's kind of like a thing. It is kind of.
I don't know if these people have said, the people that are saying that have never been to a dirt track in New York, because most dirt tracks in New York have dust on them.
That's true. No, that's very
There
true.
wasn't anything to
That's
throw.
very true.
And there's nothing to intimidate him for. It's like,
Right.
I didn't stick my car in the fence.
Right.
And so there was intimidating for what? There wasn't anything to intimidate.
Well, and see, that's why I don't even really care to talk about the incident on if or whatever or anybody's perspective. My thing would be more so like that experience that you had, the fallout, that just experiencing that is.
It's never going away.
I don't think I'm ever going to accidentally hurt somebody to that degree. A lot of people don't. I just think for you, it has to be something. I'm assuming it took years to get over that personally, just that happening.
I'm still not over it. I'm never going to be over it. It's not like at some point it's going to be okay that it happened.
Right. And it happened to a sprint car driver, like we've been describing. You love the sport of dirt racing. All these things. Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't know him. I didn't know anything about him. I don't know if I'd ever met him, but I didn't remember meeting him. But I was just happy to be doing what I love doing the most. And it wasn't like we had any issues on the racetrack. So to sit there and have it happen, literally the first thing I thought of was his family. And it's like, I can't imagine what it's like. And now I've got a son who is literally 5 feet in front of me right now that just woke up from his nap. I can't imagine what that would be like to lose a spouse or to lose a child. But even if you could imagine it, that feeling's never going to go away.
Right.
To the day I die, I'm never going to forget what happened that night.
Right.
And I say if I could go back and change things, the number one thing I would have done was be nicer to people. Yeah. The other thing I would have done is skipped one night of sprint car racing to not have that accident ever happen again. So I think probably the worst part about it is the people that absolutely think they know exactly what happened and don't know any of the thing from the police reports, don't know what the driver in front of me said, don't know what the official that was standing at the edge of the racetrack on the inside of the track trying to assist before the accident happened, to sit there and hear what their statements were before they want to sit there and believe somebody that was behind me that I didn't have a good history with.
Well, and it's an open wheel car too. You can't get all close. Like you had your Kenny Irwin Jr. deal at Martinsville, very similar, where you jump on the car a little bit, but that's a fendered car. It's different,
But it's different when you're looking at an accident and then you look up and there's somebody standing right in front of you.
Right.
It's like it's fight or flight, and everybody's, oh, you tried to spray him with dirt. There's no dirt to spray him with, and there's no reason to spray him with dirt. I don't know what he was mad about. We didn't touch. It's not the first slide job that he'd ever had delivered to him. I'm sure he's delivered slide jobs to people too. Right. But it wasn't a dirty slide job. Nobody took each other out. I honestly, nobody's going to know what he was mad about,
Yeah.
but he's mad about something.
The
He's the only one
the
that knows
defense
that.
to it has to get tiring to see it continually brought up as well. You know, I
I
mean,
gave up on it. I give up on it because it's people that don't know what they're talking about, that weren't, there's people that talk about it that weren't even there. And you're sitting there making your judgment off of a shitty cell phone camera video that was on the opposite end of the racetrack. So it's like, how much validity do you put into these? Again, I go back to, these are people that don't like me for a totally different reason, but use this family and this guy as an avenue to
right.
make their case.
Right. Well, and if there's sympathy for them and the whole family there should, I think there should be some adequate sympathy for what you had to go through as well. You know, it's not
I
easy.
can deal with it. I would rather have the sympathy for the family,
Right.
because I don't know if they get on social media and watch racing, look up all the racing stuff, but if they have to keep reading this stuff and it just keeps getting put in their face left and right, and it's not like they forgot either.
No. Yeah. Sure.
There's not a day that
Yeah.
goes by that any of that family forgets about it. But to have it thrown in their face like that under those circumstances, I think shows a lack of character in these people. I don't give two shits if they don't like me. If they don't like me, that's on them. They have that right, and that's the great thing about being Americans. We can have our own opinions. But
You're just saying this is kind of like the lower the low when you're using this
I
scenario
think
where there's
so.
loss
I
of
believe that.
life.
Yeah, I mean, there, one of the people was from Washington State that just constantly uses Kevin as a tool. And it's like, that guy wasn't there. That guy didn't know Kevin Ward. So it's obvious that there's some other reason that guy doesn't like me. And that's fine. But if you're going to stoop that low to use a family and a guy that died in a crash like that, if that's your tool, you're pretty much a piece of shit person as a human being.
Right.
So all it does is make me feel better about myself, that I was there. I know exactly what happened. It's never going to go away. My memory's never. There's a lot of things I forgot. There's race wins that I forgot because of concussions. There's never going to be a moment in my life where I'm ever going to forget about that and sit there and be okay with it. It's just not going to happen. I just hope that nobody, not even my worst enemy, I would never want my worst enemy to have to go through that, because it's an emotion and a feeling that there isn't anything. There's nothing anybody can tell you to make it better. There's nothing
Right.
that the only thing that helps it get easier over time is just time. But it gets easier, but it doesn't go away. It's always going to be there. So, but when I hear people talk about it, it doesn't register with me in the way that they want it to register, because they think it's going to be hurtful to me. Well, at this point, it's just stupidity on their part for
Well,
saying what they're saying and believing what others are saying. So like I said, I know what happened. I know the driver that was in front of me. I know what his statement was. I know what the official that was on the inside, what his statement was. We're all saying the same things. So if I'm wrong, then apparently another race car driver's wrong. If an official with the series was wrong, there's a bunch of other people that were wrong as well. So I'm I'm fine with who I am as a person. I know who I am. But yeah, I think you look at Kyle. I mean, Kyle's starting to go through it. Kyle's so successful now that now you get people talking shit on him for no reason. So it's always going to be like that. Celebrities, whether they're actors, actresses. I mean, look at Johnny Depp and the girl he was dating, the whole trial deal and bullshit that they had to go through. You're just going to have it at this level. So at some point, you kind of concede the fact of, instead of trying to defend yourself, you're like, no matter what the facts are about who you are as a person, or under certain scenarios, what's happened, those people don't know who you are. And like I mentioned, I mean, the guy that I met at Pomona last year, that guy, I bet he messaged me 6 times during the weekend talking about the runs with the drag car and stuff. And his perspective of me is totally different now that we had a chance to talk about it.
Right.
I've had a chance to be a man and say I was wrong in what I did and apologize for it. And now you got a guy that couldn't stand me a year ago, that now I'm on his Christmas card a year later. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that relationship now. And I'm sure I'm going to meet people down the road that I had bad experiences with. And I welcome the opportunity to apologize to them and say, yeah, you're right. I was an ass about it, but that's not who I am. It's not who I am all the time. it's in that work environment, and it doesn't make it right. But I make a conscious effort when I'm at the racetrack now, and I don't do it right all the time, but I make a conscious effort when we're at the races to try to treat people better and try to be accommodating and try to sign autographs and take photos even when I don't want to. I mean, there's times I want to be in the trailer with my guys, and I try to do a better job of taking care of the
Do you
fans. So
think that kind of progression of dealing with fans would have changed without seeing all the negative comments over the years? You know what I
uh
mean by that? Like, you would have had to
yeah,
have some of these experiences where people were ill righteously judging you and hearing these, this kind of you were reading the comments on your Google review for a Tony Stewart,
yeah.
and it's like you wanted to make some reviews better. And without those reviews though of people acting
I
that
don't know
way, do
if
you
I
think it
would have,
would?
honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have actually thought different about it, because I think it brought it to my attention of, how I was back in the day. And I mean, like I said, I don't do everything perfect now, but I think it was good to bring it to my attention and go, man, this isn't who I want to be as a person. And
Right.
I think it's definitely shaping the way I am going forward. And I'm going to make mistakes going forward too. There's going to be a day that I'm having a bad day and it may not go right, but all in all, in the big picture of it, I feel like, yeah, there's negative things that happen that make you a better person out of it.
Right. Well, we know that NASCAR media love to make you the hothead guy, where really you're just nice
I
guy.
was all right with that. I mean, in the situations and in those moments, I was the hothead guy,
Right.
but that wasn't who I was when I got home and when I was hanging out with my buddies and
Right.
doing the things that I wanted to do away from the racetrack. I've always told people, Jimmy was a great example. Jimmy's my perfect example, because to this day, when Jimmy Johnson and I talk on the phone at the end of the conversation before we say goodbye, I always remind him, I'm like, when I grow up, I want to be you. I want to be the person you are. And he always laughs. He goes, well, the good news is you aren't going to grow up for a while, so we don't have to worry about it. And that's our joke. So I'm good with that. It's just part of it. But, I think that's the good thing about what made Scott Bloomquist unique and what makes me unique and what makes Dale Earnhardt unique.
Characters of the sport.
Yeah, that had real personalities, that were real people, that weren't cookie cutter corporate. You know, we got to take care of the corporate people. That's why we all get to do what we do. But our fans love us because we are people. We're
Right.
real. And the fans that support us, for every one of those negative comments that gets put on somebody's shitty social media site, there's 20 fans that pile on and tell them they're an idiot.
Yeah.
And so it's like, are you going to believe the one or are you going to believe the 20? So I'm going to believe the 20.
Right.
And like I said, I know who I am. If my wife thought I was an ass, she wouldn't have married me and she wouldn't be with me and we wouldn't have a kid together. So it's like I'm proud of who I am now, and I'm proud of the work I put into making myself better at the racetrack. And when I'm thinking about stuff and somebody comes up trying to go, this may be the only opportunity they ever have, and yeah, I'm busy and they can see I'm busy, but they're excited. And so I try to sit there and just take a second before I react to it, and I think it's going to make me a better person out of it. So the negatives and the haters actually make me better too, as much as the
Right.
fans that love us have been diehard fans the whole time.
Well, and it's the experience, just as much as you may not be that bad guy in that moment, more than likely, most of these people with their negative ass comments aren't just, bad people either. Something
No,
happened to them that made
they're
them,
making,
it's all
they're making
situational.
100% of their decision is off of 100% of the information they have. You can't fault people for that. But there are people that'll think outside the box and go, yeah, this is all I know, but there might be another side that we don't know. So I think it's lessons that we all learn over time and everything. But it's kind of the saying of, you make your bed and you got to lay in it. I mean, there's things that I've said people in passing that I look back and it embarrasses me to think about it, and wish I didn't do it. But makes me think about it now and makes me go, I don't want to treat people that way.
Right.
There's a lot of times I bite my tongue when I would have lashed out in the past.
Are you getting waved off the show? I feel like you are.
No, I have to take opportunities like this when my son's awake to see him, and
Okay.
it literally makes time stop. Huh? Go ahead. Okay. No, I'm not waved off yet, but I'm burning the clock here. So my wife wants her house back. She wants to be able to do stuff in the kitchen back here.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's. I mean, we can let you go here very quick. I just thought it would be very interesting to hear, dealing with criticism, because I just feel like I'm just a guy on YouTube, and sometimes I'll just talk about racing or say a guy made a bad move, or Brent Marks cherry picked an all-star race 3 years ago. I'm just saying, and there's people still upset about that. And it's like, guys, if you were to get an ounce of this fame for the dirt track world that we would like to get,
Yeah.
how would you deal with that level of criticism? How would you deal with ESPNs and FS1s? I think that needs to be developed before it gets too big. I don't want these guys crying.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I mean, I
I
want some
think
of them
it's
crying in the room and contemplating life. I don't want them to fall into a depression because they can't handle some people being a little critical. I mean,
I think as
oh, you're
time goes
bringing us in
on.
the trophy room. Oh no.
Oh, yeah, this is where our office is, but this shitty fold-out chair that I'm sitting in was not where I wanted to be for an hour. So
Okay. Oh God.
I enjoyed the comfort of the couch in the living room, but
Are those
sometimes
Deathridge glasses?
these are readers. These are just shitty readers that I can get at CVS or
Oh.
Walgreens, so I can see what the hell's going
I'll
on
put
here.
mine on too. You need the Deathridge. Deathridge is where it's at. That's the ones
I
that
was
the
trying to do it so
Davenport
anybody could
shots.
actually see our eyes. I realized earlier with the sun the way it was a nice glare on there that everybody
Yeah.
was enjoying versus seeing us.
Yeah, that
So
that that's why I have mine off. I have the ring lights, the glare, yeah. Does the same thing. But
it's as time goes on though, you can't beat Mother Nature and death and all these other things.
mhm.
And eyesight falls into that category as well. So at 53, and I'm finally having to have readers. I don't feel like there's any shame in that game. So
Okay. Okay. Now that you're in the other room, we can get serious. She's not
yeah,
around. I
we
mean,
can
you
get
can
back to
close.
business.
Yeah, yeah. Well, out of all these years, what's the wildest night?
Wildest night
Yes,
at
or
a
day. Have
racetrack?
you ever had like what's that one movie with the Las Vegas deal where they go crazy with Mike
Mm.
Tyson and the Tigers?
Oh my God, I would
I mean,
say
I'm scared to. No, you don't have to detail it because illegal activity is still illegal all this time. I don't know what statute of limitations is, but
I don't think there was any illegal activity involved in this, but when we had the prelude, Matt Kenseth would come run our race, and so he would ask me to come up and run a race in Madison, Wisconsin. And the team I drove for had some adult establishments that they owned, and so and anybody that has ever been to Wisconsin and raced in Wisconsin, I mean, they enjoy their adult beverages up there. So
it's a
I
great
always
racing state, by the way. It's one of the biggest
like.
states in the country, I think.
Most definitely. Probably one of my favorite sprint car tracks to go run is Sheboygan County Fairgrounds,
Mm.
where
Plymouth, is
where
that Plymouth?
yeah,
Okay.
where Bill Balog and I had some epic races up there in the past. But
Cedar Lake's really good too, but continue.
Cedar Lake's
Sorry.
an unbelievably nice racetrack. I love Cedar Lake. But yeah, we would go run Matt's race, and we would do our part in supporting the economy and the local breweries, and have beverages there. And then we would go to another establishment, not the establishment the car owner had, but we would go to a different bar, and then we would go back to the race shop. But I know probably two of the last three times that I ran for that team up there, we left and the sun was up. It was like oh God, what was the football movie where they were the high school football team, and they go out and they leave, and the sun's up in the morning.
Oh, remember the Titans?
So it was that scenario where we're walking out of the building going, God, the sun's already up. We should be home by now. So, but yeah, I will say this, racing was a lot more fun. I think life in general was probably a lot more fun before cell phone cameras came out. I've
Evidence.
heard a lot of stories, a lot of veteran race car drivers that are epic stories that um, hopefully they've told somebody, so when they're gone, they can actually tell them. But it's when cell phone cameras changed the game for all of us, I feel like, and ruined a lot.
Okay. Okay. I was curious on if you obviously Illuminati runs the world. You're a lizard person. No, I'm just kidding. I've always made this joke because I've watched a lot of documentaries. Apparently, the five families in New York, the mafia families, they ran New York or whatever. And big block modified racing was huge. And I'm like, at least one of those families had to be a race fan and Sweeteners Plus and all that. Not gonna talk, but anyway.
I'm rooting for you on this one, by the way.
Oh, God. Hey, if I don't wake up tomorrow, we know why. The John Wicks are real, first of all. That's a
Yeah.
real
Oh
thing.
yeah.
There are John Wicks in the world. Are you knowingly or have you had knowledge of any John Wicks being a fan of yours? Have you been met by a John Wick? I'm just saying, have you any Capones came up and said you're my favorite driver? You know, I mean,
Not to the best of my knowledge, but if they are out there and they see this, I would love to meet them.
oh God,
Would
don't. That's a
absolutely love to meet 'em.
wish. That's a wish.
I
So you
mean,
don't know any
hopefully
bad
they're
people.
fans of ours.
Kid
As
Rock's
long
the
as they're
worst.
fans of ours, then come see us. If they're not fans of ours, we don't want to know. We don't want to know they're out there. So,
I'm just surprised Kid Rock didn't get you in a circle. You know.
no, Kid Rock and I are good. We haven't gotten too much trouble together. Now we got Dale Jr. in trouble one night at
Uh
Bristol.
oh.
He was supposed to sign autographs at the Food City deal, and he found out I was taking the plane after practice and was going to watch one of Kid Rock's shows, and he goes, I think I want to go with you. I said, I think you better go do your autograph deal. I said, because I'm not coming back here tomorrow, and half of the city of Bristol, Tennessee wants to sit there and whip my ass because I took you on a plane ride that took you away from them. And he decided to go anyway. And I said, this is on you. I said, if you get asked, I said, I told you not to go. And so he's honored that to this day. But I mean, man, there were some mad people that he didn't show up for the autograph session that night, and we went to a Kid Rock concert.
Wow. Wow. That's the only one though. That's the only one. Kid Rock. That's the baddest man you know.
Mm, I had dinner with Randy Couture the other day. That's somebody I'd
Okay.
like to have in a bar fight next to me.
Okay, yeah, that works. That works. Well, UFC's a good example of how we need personalities. You know, corporations will come on board if you got the views and the people cheering. You
Cowboy
know.
Cerrone was one of Harvick's fighters. You know,
Hmm.
Harvick's got a management company, so got to meet him. Got to meet Misha Tate. But yeah, I've met Randy a couple times in the last couple months actually, and he's a fun guy to be around. But I mean, to this day, he's getting some age on him too. But that's the last guy I'd want to jack around with.
I'm just surprised. I'm sure you've went to Bike Week once or twice or Sturgis or something. I'm surprised no 1%ers came up and been like, "Hey, big fan."
Well, we go to Bike Week every year. That was where Leah and I went on our first date. It
Okay.
started in Gainesville, and we had lunch there, and then we are like, what else are we going to do today? And you know, the thriving metropolis of Gainesville didn't have enough stuff to entertain us, so we went to Bike Week for a night. But that's something we do that every year. Every year we go back at least one night to Bike Week just to kind of remember where we met and how our relationship started.
Well, and I'm sure Leah's complete. The feelings you have with her is completely different than anyone previous. Like, do you know that? Do you can you say with all your experience in women? I can only imagine. We're not going to get into details, but I could assume that even at your age, you still felt something different with this one person out of everybody that makes it that one, and that there and this is coming from dealing with hell. Like I've met like 10 or 15 friends in the last month and a half, and they all got women issues and worried about the last girl and all this. And hell, I even got my own set, but I'm always focused on the right one because I know that ain't right. That's what I'm saying. There's still hope for the men out there who are
Oh
running
God,
through the
yeah.
gutter.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think how old I was when Leah and I started dating. I guess I was 49, and I I was telling a buddy of ours in Lake Havasu, I was talking to his son, and you know, he's starting to go out with girls, and I said, "Let me tell you something, bud." I said, think about each of these girls like a car. I said, "There's options in cars that you like, and there's things about it, whether it sits up or sits low to the ground, it's wide, it's narrow, it's got horsepower, doesn't have horsepower, whatever the color is, doesn't matter. There's everything, every girl you go out with is going to somewhat be like a car. There's going to be something you like about it, there's something you don't like." I said, and just mentally make notes of all the things you like and the things you don't like. And there's going to be that one girl that's going to come along that checks off every box on the like list on the one side and really doesn't have anything on the other side. And if there is, it's not going to matter. And that's exactly what I found when I met Leah. I mean, I, to the day that this happened, I said to people that knew on the first date that that was their person, I'm like, that's bullshit. There's no
Right.
way. You can't get to know somebody in one day. But I knew the night that we had our first date, when she left, I was like, this one, I remember saying this in my head. I said, this one's different. I didn't say this is the one. I didn't say this is who I'm going to marry one day, but I'm like, this one is definitely different. Not even close to anybody else I'd been been with in my life. And I dated some awesome girls. I mean, some cool girls that I'm still friends with, a lot of them. It just wasn't the right time or the right situations, but they just weren't Leah. And I mean, I found that one car that had all the options I liked, was the right color and all the stuff, had everything that I wanted. So I'm happy with her.
Well, yeah, and it like I said, the likes and the dislikes and all that. It also depends on how much weight you're putting in each like box.
Yeah.
It feels like in today's society we get swayed too much by visual appeal. And we let bad people into our lives just because of that eye candy, and they do, and you ignore some things because of how visually appealing they are.
I had plenty of eye candy in that run as well, and some of the nicest eye candy was the biggest problem makers, and ones that I had the biggest issues with at the end of the day. And so, yeah, if you're just going for eye candy, you're going to be sadly disappointed at the end of your life.
Hmm.
There's going to be the one that's going to there's going to be a person that comes along that no matter what they look like is going to change your life, whether you're ready for it to or not. They're just going to do that. You're really lucky if that person also looks really good at the same time.
Right. You
But there
basically
is
want
that.
to buy the car that you want to drive, not that you want to show off to all your friends.
Right, right. And if you get lucky enough to have one that your friends like your car too, great. So
Yeah,
be it.
that's true. That's true. So it's like the happy medium, I guess.
Yeah.
That is the happy medium. But I guess we can let you go. It's getting too late. I mean, you said an hour. I mean,
The good thing, she doesn't give me
is
a
there anything you
curfew.
want to ask me or yell at me for or anything?
No, I want to. You and I talked yesterday, and I told you yesterday. The great thing about our world is whether you agree with everybody all the time or disagree, it doesn't really matter. But I've watched your show a lot, and there's a lot of things that I'm like I spend more time shaking my head yes than no on it, and going, yeah, I wish I could say things that way, but I still got corporate sponsors I
Oh
still got
God.
to take care of.
Oh,
But I think
I'm
I
about
think
to
you got a
start
pretty
selling
good.
out. I'm about to start selling out for the money.
No, I
I
don't do
might as well
that.
do
Don't do
it.
that. Nah, don't do it. I don't see you selling out, man. I just don't see I
It's
don't see that being in your cards.
it's too
I don't
far
mean that
deep.
you're capable of doing it. I just don't see you falling into that bucket.
Right.
So,
It's a hard bucket. I mean, anybody who's pure has been offered to be tainted. I've been offered to be tainted. I've just said no. So I mean, it's tough though. There's a lot of money out there saying for that fakeness. They get a pretty good paycheck.
well, at the end of the day, we got to eat. So you got to do what you got to do.
That's
But
true. That's true.
I, I like your passion for the sport. I like the fact that it brings back the way I used to be and the way I wish I could be all the time. There's times that I have opinions, and whether I'm right or wrong on them, it's still my opinion, and we all have a right to voice that. So it's like I say, it's no different than people that like or dislike me. If they don't like me, they got a right to voice their displeasure if they want, but at least have some facts behind it. And I feel like if there's something that's controversial that you're on, it's not just off of emotion. There's facts that you got to support it, and I think that's where people sometimes get cross-threaded and don't think the right way when they're not realizing that, yeah, it may not be a popular opinion, but you didn't just grab it out of air for no reason. There's something that's validating that statement and that thought.
Well,
So.
and I like to joke around, and we get to drinking. I held the beers off tonight. I don't know where it would have went if I would
Trust me, I've been ready for one for about an hour and a half right now. So we
have.
should we should have just agreed to start that way. I feel like that would have been productive.
It would have saved some time. Depends. Alcohol is technically a poison. It is technically a poison. But no, I feel like I
We
joke a lot.
survived those poisons, though.
Yeah,
We
there.
survived.
This is true. This caffeine's a poison. But anyway, yeah. I mean, I feel like I do enough comical stuff. I mean, I make a joke. I always have my little smart ass comments. Obviously, my Caitlin Larson smart ass comment got me a fake black eye. But I mean, that was intimidate. I don't know. I don't want to get into that subject. But regardless,
The good thing is it was a fake black eye at the end of the day, because there's no doubt in my mind. I feel like she's one that actually could deliver a legit black eye to somebody
yeah,
when
she
if
would.
it comes to
She
shove.
would.
She could do it and would deliver it. I feel like.
Well, I was trying to play it off as Kyle did it, but we already had our Bubba Wallace story.
I'm
So I was trying
I'm
to give
gonna
him
go
some
on a
street
limb.
cred. He's been
I'm gonna
training,
go
right?
on a
Tell me
limb.
you put him in training. He's been training.
No, but I'm going to go on a limb and say if push came to shove, Caitlin would handle it before Kyle
Oh,
wins.
come on. Don't say
I
that out
really believe that.
loud. Come
Kyle
on.
doesn't want to fight. Kyle wants to
Why
just
not? Why
race.
not tell him to get off the bike and do some jujitsu or boxing training? I mean, it's just as much cardio. I used to weigh funny story. I used to weigh 450 pounds up until 28 years old. Then I ate right, worked out, went down to 190. No surgeries, no nothing. But I was doing a lot of boxing workouts and fun cardio and cardio workouts because that it really does burn calories. It's way more fun than a bike. I hear he bikes all the time. That's why he's got his watch that he wears in sprint cars, but gets away with it.
So I will say my wife also in her early teenage years got drug in an alley by a girl and got her butt kicked, and she took up boxing classes.
There you go.
So as much as I'm saying Caitlin would be the one I feel like that would settle something with a fist, I put my wife in that category too. I feel like if push came to shove, my wife's going to be the first one to throw before I throw. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I'd be far behind her, but I think she's going to throw. And if she lands it, she's got bony ass knuckles. It is going to hurt.
Yeah.
So
So you ain't
that's
got
why
nothing to deal with by the time you get there. It's over.
most likely I feel like, and she is me 17 years earlier. So I mean, the times I get fired up, she's got that. She has that gear in her transmission too. That when she gets to that and shifts into that, you better watch out. So. The good news is I see it coming before it gets there, so
Oh
I can
god.
normally pull the throttle blades back a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's probably what you've learned with age and dealing with women is seeing the telltale signs before they pop, before the firecracker actually is lit and blows up, because at least with us, I feel like we give signs before we go off, whereas with them, it could just be like, bam, wrong sentence and
Yeah,
it's on.
she can do a good job of disguising that she's mad for a little while, but it's I've been with her long enough now that I see the telltale signs before. It's like playing poker. Everybody's got to tell, and I she's got to tell that when I've said something or done something wrong, I know it's coming because I can see it. I see it before she says anything, and I'm like, all right, I either need to go to a different room or I need to go somewhere where I can think about what the next statement that comes out of my mouth is because that is going to be the difference between the couch and the bed
Right,
at night. So,
right. But that's disappointing. Kyle has not took up any kind of combat sports training, to
not
your
that I'm aware,
knowledge.
to my knowledge, no. I don't. He's a racer, not a fighter. So I guess it's kind of like being a lover, not a fighter. But he's a racer, not a fighter.
But I
So
mean, you would think he'd have some kind of like genetic skill. He is Asian. I mean, they're fucking badass, dude. They are. They are. I got Asian blood in me. I mean, that's why I think
well,
I'm.
maybe it just means he can sneak up on him before the fight starts. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
come
know exactly what
on.
angle we're working here. So
Oh, come on. Cody Jacobs, he jokes and calls Brad Sweet Ginger Kitty. He calls Kyle Larson Panda Express. That's messed up.
now not only do I want a beer, now I want food. So
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, no vegan diets, huh? What happened with your diet? Do you still take the shots? What happened there? You
no,
because
I
that
did
stuff's
my.
bad for you. I heard. I heard it does some damage to you.
It is. Well, I mean, what damage is it going to do that I haven't done to myself
Well, I
already?
understand, but
40 plus years of motorsports. So, no, I did a round of the shots and shit, I lost 25 pounds at one point. So I haven't gained all of it back, but I've gained probably 15 of it back. But,
what
you
made you
know,
stop the shots? What just
well, it just was a 12-week deal. It was a
okay?
12-week, and so you just do the 12 weeks and you're done. But um, literally, I mean, I still don't go to a gym and work out or anything like that. I should, but I just never been a workout
Count
person.
calories or
Nope. Nope.
just
I raced. I mean, you can eat a lot more junk when you're racing and burning it off, and when you're having Pocono weekends where you're at the Cup track during the day,
right
3 days in a row, and sprint car races at night, you're burning some calories.
race
So I didn't.
shape? Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't going to run down the street a mile and go pick up the
Logan
mail and load.
Schuchart.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. So
That Logan Schuchart, man, he is the
not
Energizer
that
Bunny.
dedicated. So
Have you seen him? I'm sure you've seen him when he's in town. He's running down the street everywhere. Every time you go to an outlaw race, if you're there at Tuesday or Wednesday, Logan Schuchart's jogging.
let me tell you something. If you see me and you see me running, don't look at me, look behind me because something is coming. The
It's-
only way you're getting me running
Do you have any
is
wilderness stories? Do you have any extreme shark or bear or oh shit moments? Any lions, tigers, or bears? Anything? No, no Wizard of
I had
Oz.
a tiger. I had a tiger for a while, a
You had
tiger
a
cub.
tiger.
I was a foster parent for a tiger cub until she started chewing on my furniture and making it a toothpick factory.
Mm.
And then that was the end of that deal.
How was that? That had to be different to be looking at those animals in the eyes. There's a big difference from my understanding.
Yeah, that's like playing $5 blackjack with a house cat versus $25,000 hand blackjack with a tiger. But really cool experience. It was fun, and it was uh, I was grateful I had that opportunity. I'm a big fan of tigers. I'm not Tiger King or anything like that.
Okay.
But
Just making
uh,
sure.
yeah, not even close. But definitely appreciate and respect tigers. I always have. So that was a pretty cool experience. But I've got 400 acres in Indiana. Um, I didn't really know anything, and I still don't know a lot about elk, but I drive a Ford Raptor pickup truck at home, and we had this one elk that it would always stand in the middle of the road, and it would always be when it was wet and this and that, and you couldn't drive around him because you bury it in the mud, and literally this elk came right up to the window, and I'd roll my window down. Had no idea how stupid this was, but would roll my window down, and he'd sit there and damn near have his horns inside the window of the truck. And one day, the guy that's our deer and elk manager at our ranch that we're selling hunts for at our property finally, which is kind of cool. But the guy that takes care of me goes, man, he goes, he'll take those horns and he'll turn that body of that thing into a Budweiser can and have it ripped in two in no time. He goes,
Yeah.
you don't want to mess with them.
Yeah.
But I got away with it, but I don't mess with them now. They're way bigger than me.
Yeah. Apparently, the white-tailed deer is responsible for more deaths in the wild than any animal because of the hooves and the antlers. People underestimate how
Yeah.
deadly wild animals are of any kind, really.
In the rut, you don't want to mess with a deer either, but most of the time you can tell they're so messed up. I mean, you can be close to a deer out in the woods, and if they're really in the rut, um, they're alert, but their give a F meter isn't really
Right.
registered too much. They want one thing and one thing only, and that's to find the females. So,
Well,
but
that
no,
prob
I haven't had any wild encounters where I had any issues in the wild.
I did. I had a stranded tire in the just outside of Yellowstone a couple years ago, and there was a bear encounter apparently while I was asleep in the car, and the cop woke me up. It was one of my more famous live videos actually, but I don't know what happened. I was asleep, but apparently there was like a bear walking around my car, and the cop ran him off, woke me up. I was changing my tire and I broke the key lock because you got a little key lock that goes on the rim, and it broke, and it was like 2 in the morning. I went live and everybody's laughing at me, and they're like, "There's a shop down the street. Just sleep in the car and wake up." So I go to sleep in the car. I wake up to a cop hitting the window. I think he's just going to tell me, just stay safe. And he's like, "Oh, well, we drove by and witnessed a grizzly bear circling your vehicle. If it comes back, stay in the vehicle and don't move." I'm like, "We're about to see how far a fucking flat tire will drive. I
Yeah,
ain't staying still."
just far enough to get away. I got a feeling.
Oh,
So.
people loved it. They thought it was great. People still talk to me about this story. It's bad. I don't know why. They enjoy it. They enjoy it. And they want to talk about Australia all the time. Apparently, Australia is a big deal. It was funny earlier when you were talking about dirt coming off cars and all that and out the fence. Perth, they actually have like a rule for all the race teams. They have to park on like a mat, and then they have to shuffle all the mud back into the pitting area, and then they collect all the dirt, and they collect the dirt off the fence and put it back on the track so they don't lose none of the dirt. It's actually pretty smart. I know you did Australia a little bit, but you had an issue in Australia, I think, as well.
I had a minor issue in Australia.
Yeah, that was not good, and I guess that kind of ended the Australia stuff. Or have you wanted to go
No,
back? Or
the idiot that I got into it with had a 6 year window to pull the pin if he wanted to start a problem. But the reason it wasn't an issue is because if he pulled the pin, he had to pull it on himself too. So it really wasn't a drama. We're actually talking over there right now about doing some races
okay,
possibly next year. So but not in cars that you think. So
what kind of cars? Supercars or?
no, might try some drag racing over there.
Well,
There
and Perth
might be.
is nice for that. Perth has
Yeah,
a nice drag strip. Have you been to Perth?
I did. I went to Perth with it. That was the very first track that I ran a midget at, but it's not the same Perth track now.
Oh, okay.
It's fairgrounds.
Okay. That was that Claremore or whatever, or whatever.
Yeah, Claremont, I think.
Claremont. Yeah, I think it was called Claremont. But that Perth facility, that is out of all the facilities, even compared to Eldora, It is the Taj Mahal of a race facility. And it does make me jealous sometimes of the Australian scene because the sprint car drivers have relevancy, it seems like, with society over there. They're idolized a little bit more. I think that's because they're atop of that, back to those sectors of oval and road. And it's like there's nothing higher than 410 wing sprint cars in Australia in a circle. There's road
Yeah.
course racing, but oval racing, that's the top of the peak of the pie.
The fans in Australia were unbelievable,
Mhm.
and same in New Zealand as well. But man, Australia, when we went over there, the first time I went to run a midget over there the whole time, and I ended up staying. I got in trouble when I got back because my I didn't think anything about it, but I stayed like 2 extra weeks longer than what I was supposed to, what my visa was.
Mm.
But when I got back, I got invited into a room and there were rubber gloves, and I'm like, what in the hell's getting ready to go down
Wow.
here? That was not a fun part of the trip, which didn't need anything with the rubber gloves, by the way, but for dramatic effect, it got my undivided attention. But
Right.
I had not traveled abroad and wasn't aware that what I had done was going to get me in trouble when I got back. But it was, yeah, it was a big deal. They didn't like that.
Well, and their fan base is really different too.
Yeah.
They do drink a lot, and I make the joke sometimes. I feel like in dirt racing, sometimes our fan base is halfway antisocial and just wants to find somewhere to get drunk on a Saturday night. Not all of them. I'm just saying it seems like that is like their excuse to be alone in the stands and cheer and scream and get drunk. Over there, they got rules. You can't go in the pits with the beer. You can't. There's certain things that is not allowed, and I think that honestly, for them at least, that provides a fan base of more so people who like the sport more so than just find it as a party.
I told somebody, I remember watching, I think it was the second time I went over there. I was watching a sprint car heat race, and the guy that won the thing won it by almost 3/4 of a lap. Like the entire field, second to last, was all in a group together. Was an unbelievable race to watch. And I remember when everybody finally got out of the gas and you could hear the announcer, he wasn't talking about the race for second on back. He was praising how what an outstanding performance
Hmm.
the guy that won the heat race had. And I came back and I remember being in the media center at Daytona and I said, "You realize all you guys got this wrong and are screwing this up for everybody." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "If it's not, if the first and second place cars aren't within a second, everybody talks about how bad a race it is." And
Hmm.
I said, "It's not a bad race." I said, "I wonder," and I told him the story about the heat race over there. And I said, "This guy was sitting there going, talking about how much of an outstanding performance this driver and
Yep.
team just left the entire field and drove a 3/4 of a lap ahead of him in an 8 lap heat race, and nobody else could get there." And I'm like, "You're playing this all
Yeah,
wrong."
it's the presentation.
Yeah. And so I feel like we as, I don't know, I'm going to say the motorsports media, I think there's times when they've got it wrong and hurt the industry as well, which hurts them ultimately at the end of the day too. To sit there and because it's not side by side at the finish line, it was a bad race. Well, I mean, it's dark outside. If I sat there and said, "Man, it's really bright out," if I said it enough times, eventually somebody's going to go, "Yeah, it is kind of bright for nighttime." You convince them of it. And I think that's kind of what we did. We had an era in NASCAR where the racing wasn't bad, like everybody was saying.
Right.
It just wasn't the side by side exciting finish. And you can't do that every week. It's not going to
Well,
be that
and
way.
the best one with you in particular that I remember off the top of my head was when Bristol did the progressive banking and y'all were racing all over and throwing sliders, and it was a good race and people were saying it was boring and because they
Yeah,
wanted people to be on the bottom,
knocking
wreckers
each
and
other out of the
checkers.
way.
Yeah, they wanted the aggression. But that is, see, I think the Australian fan base would have loved that.
Yeah.
Or the American fan base in motorsports in general. This may not be a dirt deal. It seems like the American fan base really just want a fucking Jerry Springer drunk, kind of slobber knocker. It's like a wrestling thing.
They're getting all but the slobber knocker part. I mean, they're getting the guys doing it on the racetrack with the race cars, but
Hmm.
when the race is over, they don't have the balls to sit there and handle it one on one with each other.
Right. Well, and then the,
And
and
so
then
they
the
do have
racing ain't
an
good.
ignorant.
I mean, it is good. I guess your point in a way is there's some good races that we're marketing as bad. even though they're not
Right.
that bad. You know, just like people love to say NASCAR back in the day was so amazing, but you go look at the results, it's like Richard Petty won this race by 5 laps. How is that entertaining? It's like, what? I mean,
I think it's just the standards were different then than what they are now too. I mean, it's when you see a good finish and you see like Atlanta. I mean, I'm not a big fan of watching Atlanta anymore, but man, the finishes sure as hell are exciting. I mean, they're three wide, two, three
yeah.
wide. It's photo finishes at Atlanta now, which
Well, and
that's
the
pretty cool.
Gen 4 Cup car at Old Atlanta, I'll watch that every day. But everything since then at Atlanta, it ain't really been that great. So maybe, yeah, the new Atlanta with the new car is the best they could do.
Yeah, and they made the best out of a bad situation. I mean, the races didn't finish well, but it was the old Atlanta was awesome. I mean, it was a driver's
Mm-hmm.
racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
You as a driver had more input there on your outcome than any other racetrack, I feel like. So I don't know.
That's where Carl Edwards put it on him that one day, sliding off a 4-man. That's when Carl Edwards, in my opinion, put his name on the map in my eyes
Yeah,
when he did that in the Scott's car.
I still to this day, every time Carl's name comes up, I just sit there and it reminds me of when I used to get Speed Sport News every week, and in the classified ads, it was Carl's ad in there saying, "If you need a driver, I'm your guy."
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, I never asked Carl, and I don't even know if Carl would know the answer to it. I'd love to know how much he spent in ads because it was every week for years. It was
Just
his
trying.
ad trying to get a ride, and I'm like, nobody else did it, and everybody, we all, I mean, shit. I remember as an industry, we all laughed at him about it, and it's like, didn't you sit there and see the work he put into it? And it's like, no, it was unconventional, and it wasn't something we would do, but he did it and made it work, and ended up
Well, and
doing
that
what
looked like a forced out
millions
when
of
he
people
left,
dream of.
too.
Yeah, I don't. I
Looked
saw
like.
Dale Jr.'s podcast and listened to that, and I sent Dale a message. I said, I remember all of it. I remember our last championship run in 11 where him and I tied in points, and I remember the day that he dominated that thing and got taken out at the end of it. And I said, this guy left because his heart was broke. And it's like you can't blame him. I mean, that was in the era where NASCAR was pulling all these bullshit cautions with stuff on the racetrack just to close the field up. And the great thing is the great decision they made now that has changed all that is the gambling. They can't manipulate the race anymore.
Oh, we think that. We think that. We
I'm
just
telling
saw
you,
it happen last year. I mean, we just saw it happen last year. I mean,
if they ever get caught manipulating a race, it'll be game over for the
well,
sport.
but that's also why John Wick runs the world. If you got to move some money, I mean, there was still gambling on NASCAR back in the day. It's just you had to be in Vegas and do it with a bookie. You know, I mean, I'm sure there was, and this is not saying it was wrong or right. I'm sure there was $1 billion or $1 billion on someone else to win that summer Daytona 2001 race besides Dale Jr. You know, but if you're on the end and you need to move some money, those draft tracks, I mean, we know about horse races getting fixed all the time. Now you got mechanical horses. I mean,
I don't think I feel like NASCAR manipulates the races less now than they ever have.
mm,
Literally. I mean, when I started, there were two guys in the tower that had two stopwatches in each hand, so you had four stopwatches, time and 43 cars coming down every segment of pit road. Now you tell me how they could do that.
mm-hmm.
They could. But if you pissed them off or you rubbed them the wrong way, the next week you could about guarantee you were going to get a pit road speeding penalty.
Right.
That's how they controlled it.
Well, and
It was
like I said, there was gambling in that era too. It just wasn't as
sure.
publicized.
Right.
And I had this discussion with Jeremy Mayfield. We had him on the show at one point for some talking, and I brought up the gambling deal, and all of a sudden the feed cut on him because he's getting too serious about it. But no, I mean, yeah, I think gambling's more prevalent in our face now. But I think they've been pulling stuff. Like I said, I think the John Wicks run the world, but so who
I just
knows?
they can I don't think they can you don't see phantom cautions anymore. You just
Mm.
don't.
You just don't
And
see this much. You're saying,
yeah, you aren't going to see some of those things at all because that's manipulating the race. Well, they can't have that. They can NASCAR as a sanctioning body can get sued for that. So at least the integrity of the race, I feel like, is intact.
right? Well, and that's what made that Martinsville thing so big was because you saw Chevrolet, you saw the OEM manufacturers setting up other teams and other people. You know, I mean, at least we had enough evidence for that. I mean, we had what, 7 teams correlating there. I mean, it don't take 7 to correlate finishes, really.
Right.
It takes
Yeah.
maybe 2 guys, 2 or 3, and you can have it done. But anyway,
Numbers.
well, now
So,
gambling's into the dirt world, so I mean, I've almost paid my pit passes this year. I've almost paid my
coming into, yeah, I've been keeping up on you. You seem to be doing pretty good on it. I need to follow your lead if I was going to do that.
It's
But I'm not
hard.
allowed to even do that now, so, as an owner. But drag racing, it's getting ready to get in drag racing too. I mean,
Well, that's honestly,
I think,
that's big in drag racing at your local tracks. That's all it
oh yeah,
is
yeah,
gambling.
absolutely. And I think it's, uh, I think it's good. I mean, if people can sit there and go and in between rounds they can bet on the next pair that's coming up or the next round. I mean, it just gives another layer of entertainment to the product. So as long as they're able to do it and do it responsibly and they're not betting their house on it, I mean, I think it's great.
Well, and that's the problem. We're leaning on human responsibility at that point,
Which should not
with
be,
money.
we know, which is a proven deal that it's not a good
It's
idea.
never worked.
Yeah.
It's never worked. The most depressed state in the United States, I believe, is Louisiana, that leading in gambling and beer sales. So
Not necessarily in that order.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Alcohol and depression. Oh God.
Well,
Oh
I'm a big
God.
fan of making sure that people that want to come enjoy alcohol at Eldora Speedway get it at a reasonable price.
You
That's
do
why
good
our
at
beer
that.
prices are reasonable there. So we want people to be able to bring their families. If they can feed their family almost as cheap as they can going to McDonald's now, which is great. And obviously, if they want to have adult beverages, we want to make sure that it's accessible and reasonably priced as well.
Well, now the issue is that ballroom going to be the same way? Is the ballroom going to be uh
I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be
okay?
fun. I'm looking forward to people coming this year, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the feedback is of it because it is something that I've spent a lot of time on with what we wanted and what ideas we had and what came out of it, what it's turned into. So there's a neat outside area for people to hang out in. There's the inside area and it's just for people that, we put on events that are 3, 4 days long, not just single night events. And so for people that come and camp and don't want to sit in the motorhome the entire time they're there. It gives them some place to go where they don't have to
Right.
necessarily get off property and drive 10 miles down the road and worry about are they going to be all right driving back. So I like having a place for them to hang out, and that was the motivation behind it. Really was to sit there and not make it corporate offices and give people a cool place to hang out when they're at the races and before and after the races and let them have a good time.
I mean, I know this is weird. We're probably going to end it soon, but that's the big announcement right here. This ballroom. I mean, I ain't really heard much about it. Are you going to have karaoke? Do I need to bring some culture in there? Do a rap concert? What are we doing?
Well, if you could do a rap concert, we'll definitely
I got some
we'd have to
songs.
get
I don't know if you heard any of my songs. I don't know if you heard my music.
I haven't. I
I'll
didn't
send you
know you
some
had that
links.
hidden talent.
I'll send you some links.
Well, I don't think we need karaoke then. We just need your rap stuff.
No, we got to make it fun for everybody. We got to make it fun for everybody.
I don't know, man. Going and listening to people doing karaoke makes me want to slit my wrist sometimes.
If they're bad, it is horrible. But I've had some really good nights at Lenny's when they do it. Lenny's at the Chili Bowl, Elephant Run. I know you've had to go to the Elephant Run.
Oh yeah, I remember every time I went into Elephant Run. I don't remember every time I left Elephant Run.
That is the bad effect. And they have a hotel, so you don't technically have to leave, although it's not the best. But
No, but you wake up in somebody's room in the middle of the night and you're like, whose room am I in and where's my pants?
I
So
I
it's,
I don't doubt that you've experienced that, but I haven't. I have not experienced that before. I have not.
it was all honorable and on the up and up, and there was no tomfoolery or anything involved in that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's nice to have friends that stay at that hotel. So if you are unable to get yourself home, you have somewhere to go.
Right. That's true. So Australia for sure you're going.
I don't know that yet. It's very early conversations, but trust me, I'm looking. I would welcome the opportunity to go back there again. I love racing in Australia. Love the people there.
Well, that's one thing. Before we get out here, last subject. Safety. How about that? Because I believe you headed up that Sprint Car Council for safety at one point, correct?
Well, it was more than just safety. Safety was one silo of it, but we did start it. It was in an effort just kind of get everybody on the same page on rules. I mean, you see what happens now with Lucas Oil late models and World of Outlaw late models, and they can agree on most things. They can't agree on all the things. So it was really just to try to unify everything to where everybody knew what was in each other's heads on rule packages, to where, if you were running an IRA race in Wisconsin, you were running the same stuff as the World of Outlaws or the All Stars or PA or California, and didn't have to sit there and buy two sets of different wings and this and that. It was just to try to get everybody on the same page. But the great thing about it was the safety side of it and the discussions we all had there. But I will say World Racing Group really kind of leads that still to this day, and I feel like all along, especially on the safety side, they've been the ones to lead the charge on all that. That's something that, whether you like World Racing Group or don't like them, you got to appreciate what they've done for the sport. And it's not always financial gain. It's what's genuinely best for the competitors and the fans and the sport itself.
Well, I've always kind of been vocal about the sprint car in particular. I think it is a very in its essence a barbaric car. It hasn't changed or varied much. There's not really anywhere for anyone to go in these cars. The gas tank, the setup. I mean, you have an explosive device on an impact point of the vehicle. There's no other race car that is like that, really. Um, it is one of those things where it's almost like, is there a need for a new sprint car in the future, at least? Not a next gen sprint car. I was actually saying that. Something that redesigns don't have to be much different. And there's a lot of issues with the cars aerodynamically and all these things that people don't like about them that could be addressed if you were to try to design a new car for everybody to base on. I did a Triple X tour. Australia has some different rules to where they have different graces where you have to have bars for halo position and but they have a government, so they're able to implement rules instantly or you don't race. But that is influenced by the insurance companies as well, which is what I think is really starting to ring on a lot of these local tracks and why they're shutting down. Because the more popular this sport's getting, the more aware the insurance companies of what's going on out there in the woods, and they're jacking the rates up. But regardless, I think that eventually there should be some kind of new design for this class of car. I mean, there's only so much you can do with the specs we have right now on them.
True. I think containment seats was a game changer.
But now the
It,
seats are too big for the car. I mean, Aaron Reitzel
yeah,
got caught
I
in one
mean,
last year
there isn't,
because
yeah, there's not a lot of extra room in them for sure. I mean, I remember being in one of the meetings with the World of Outlaw groups, and we were talking about wings and what we could do to try to make them less air dependent. And I mean, I turned into the Antichrist in about 5 seconds when I said this, and I said, well, let's just take 6 inches of the wing length down of it. Just shorten the front of it up 3 inches, shorten the back of it up 3 inches, leave the width of the same, leave the boards the same. That way, visually, it looks almost identical. It's going to be such a small change that the fans aren't going to notice it, most likely. If they do notice it, it's such a small change that it's not going to turn them off to it. And I would say about two-thirds of the owners in there lost their minds. And I thought, all right, well, I'm going to just sit and keep my mouth shut from now on. But I was like, it was just such a simple deal. But you're right. The cars are pretty much the same as they've been forever. It's part of one of the things I do like about them, though,
right. Well,
too, is
that's the
I'm
appeal as
not so
well, right?
confident that people can't work on them. And I mean, when you can knock a front end out of it and change it in 2 minutes, that's a pretty cool deal. The fuel cells would be the one thing that I feel like the 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 sanctioning bodies need to crack down on more. I mean, there is no reason that fuel cells should be flying off of a sprint car. Period.
Well, but then somebody like Donnie will say he wants it to get off. He
We
wants it
don't
to
want.
get away. You know.
Yeah, well, until you own a racetrack and you're sitting there thinking about
Yeah.
flying 31
Yeah.
gallons of methanol in a plastic tank through the air into somebody's lap. I
Yeah.
mean, that cannot happen. So for me, I mean, we assume that risk when we get in these cars. The fans don't assume that risk of that fuel cell flying over the fence, but it shouldn't be coming out anyway, because when it comes off, it's leaking fuel everywhere. The caps should be better. We shouldn't be leaking fuel out of fuel cells.
Well, and
on
then
cars.
the cells themselves, there's only one that has any certification. I believe that's the best ATL. It's the lowest grade FIA certification there is. The rest of them are there's no SFI.
Right.
I did a video with the guy about this, last year when the Angelique Bell scenario happened, because that's the other issue. Is it seems like we can have nobodies get hurt, but when somebody I mean, look at your situation at Oskaloosa. I mean, how many people had their ankles? Well, you had it really bad, but I'm just saying, how many people have been injured to that degree? But because it wasn't a somebody, we just keep on going.
Yeah, it seems like the higher profile person that gets hurt, the more that gets done afterwards. It's
Right.
like I remember,
But that's not
it
how
should
safety should be. It's supposed to be
no,
equality.
not at all. But it's like it always takes something happening for it to be on the front of everybody's mind. And then as time goes on and nothing happens, it gets pushed further back in your mind than before. Um, but the fuel cell deal, the fuel cell's coming out, axles breaking for no reason.
Yeah,
Like
that's
we're seeing
crazy.
weird stuff happening that we haven't seen in the past. The fuel cell thing's been going on for a while. Rear ends breaking
That
and
hasn't been happening.
that's
That's
not
new. That's the last 2 years.
that I feel like those two areas I feel like are the low hanging fruit that need to be addressed. But I mean it's not bad manufacturers that are having it. It's just unfortunate problems, but they need to be addressed,
Well, and the
unfortunately.
issue is source meddling. Where are you getting your sources from? It's like how organic are they, sourcing what mines are they actually getting new steel and components from to build these things anymore? Are they cheap before you even get them to start making the steel? I mean, that's the issue with any supply and demand is how long can we keep the supply going,
I mean, we had an axle break, and I don't know what the reason for it breaking. I'm not blaming the rear end company by any means for it, but it's if I sat there and have an option that I know I got a better product that is going to last, I would take that as a professional race team. When you're racing for points championships and you're racing these big races, you can't afford to drop out of races under any circumstances, let alone a big show. So if I know that I can spend more money on a product that I know is going to hold up, I would rather spend the
right?
extra money to have a quality product
Right.
than to sit there and try to have something that's cheaper. But 10 guys down the street that run weekly at a weekly track may not be able to afford that. So, there's got to be that balance, obviously. But, when it comes to the safety side of it, I don't know that you can compromise that anymore. I mean, we're in this era where everybody's damn feelings get hurt for any or no reason, and we're all supposed to bend over backwards and kiss their ass to make them feel good. And you just got to be careful in this day and age about stuff breaking and, where it goes.
Well, and if it gets to a point where there could be 15 franchise teams, say, on each side of Outlaws and High Limit, then you could possibly look into doing for sure changes to at least that group of cars, and then maybe the new All Stars is like the old style or whatever, and but if you want to run here, here's what you got to have. Not a next gen. I think a new car design is needed. I think it's at what is it, 86 to 88 right now. I think if you could go 92 and maybe widen it out by 3 or 4 inches, it wouldn't look much different, but the things you could do safety wise with that much room would be immense.
I think the width would be, and I'm just this is just off
Well,
the
the
top of my
depth
head.
is the concern with the fuel cell and everything, because that's why everything's so tight like that.
Yeah, I guess if you have to lengthen it that way, but I would say for crashes and stuff, the width would be more important to me than the length of it would be at this point. I mean, if you can have the fuel cell manufacturers actually come up with something that's going to hold in a crash, if everybody has to do it, then it's not a weight advantage. If everybody has to use the same material in their mold to strengthen that, then it's not an advantage for anybody. But somebody has to mandate it and somebody has to regulate it. But
And then maybe they have to mandate how much fuel's in the car. You have to run 33 gallons of fuel if you have it. I mean, whatever. I mean, because it is all performance reasoning. The reason people are running out at Vegas at the high limit race is performance reasoning. It's all about the old school World of Outlaw cars, they were like 1,100 pounds, and they had to put weight rules in because it was all about that speed. They didn't care about life or death.
Well, the hard thing that I would say would be the reason to not get too carried away with that and mandating that you got to run 33 gallons or whatever is, then you start ending up like NASCAR. You end up making so many rules that don't necessarily have to be there. And then you make a bad rule, and then you got to come up with three more rules after that to fix the one bad rule that you just had. Next thing you know, I mean, their rule book looks like the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Hmm.
I mean, it's there, you just get to where it just gets carried away and out of control, and then you get away from what made the Outlaws.
Right.
And it can't be just the Wild West. I mean, there's so much technology and all the things out there,
Parts
tools.
manufacturers, people making money,
Yeah, there's so many people out there with all of it. You can't mandate all of it, but don't take the creativity out of it.
Well, I
It's
do think as long as you're on a dirt surface with 900 horsepower, you can book it as much as you want. That driver's going to make the difference. I think that's what you enjoy about the car. You
yeah,
know, you
absolutely.
if you put all the cars out there, what I'm saying, same setup, same everything. But if you put 24 different drivers in those cars, you're still going to have a race just because of the field that we're playing on.
Yeah, but as technology gets better and everybody, I mean, I would say right now everybody's pretty much got the same stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't think there's anything out there that somebody doesn't have or doesn't have access to. And so, that's where I feel like NASCAR went wrong. They tried to get the competition so close that then it got to where you didn't have drivers and teams that could make a difference like they used to. And they can now. I mean, it's still there. I mean, you still have the best teams winning the majority of the races and the best drivers doing that. But you also hurt the product on track where they're having to be creative and find ways with trick pit strategies and different ways to get track position. When you can't just drive your way up
To
there,
the front, yeah,
that's a bad deal. And
right.
and so, and again, it's
I
not
just
all
don't think that could happen in dirt due to the field we play on. But I mean,
know, but
I know what you're
you talk
saying.
to drivers about how bad dirty air affects them, and I've driven a wing sprint car a lot. I mean, the as long as you got two grooves, you got an out. But if it becomes one groove with a wing, you're stuck.
The
You don't.
leader's for sure gone until he
Yeah,
gets to
I
traffic.
mean,
That's all
when
you're
tracks
waiting.
go down, I mean, look what happens there. Nobody can pass.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how fast you are not going to get by that guy. You can't get close enough to him. If you could get right to his rear bumper, then you'd have a shot. But when because of the wing, they can't get to a guy's rear bumper, you're stuck two, three, four car lengths back. It's hard to get that advantage to make a move on a guy.
So we wide the chassis by 4 inches, maybe go to a 90, and then we put this 3 inch, said 3 inches off the wing. That's what we need for the new car.
I looked at 3 inches off the front and the back each, and that I turned into the Antichrist all of a sudden.
What would the effects of that have been?
It just would, I think it would be less turbulent behind it because you have less surface area of wing. So I think it would just clean the air up a little bit behind.
So you're basically it would the air is being released sooner off the car
Yes. Yep.
and going back easier. But then also the wicker bills, period, are doing that.
Yeah, and that's always been the debate. The wicker bill you want for the guys. A wicker helps the guys behind in dirty air. That's what the wicker
Right.
bill's for. In clean air, the foil of the wing is going to be more efficient. So it's that wicker bill is what makes a huge difference for the cars further back. But if the guy in the front's using it and it's an advantage for him up front, then it doesn't really help the guys in the back.
Right. Okay. Well, I know you're probably getting waved out now. It's fine. It's fine.
I think little man's bedtime.
Oh no, you got to handle real business now. Okay.
This is a real situation right here. I mean,
Oh
that's
no,
business. So
real
anyway,
business.
all right, buddy.
Yeah.
Night night. Love you.
Bye, guys.
I feel like I'm ruining a relationship right now. Don't tell me.
No, see, that's how loving and caring my wife is. She didn't just take my son and put him to bed and say, "Well, you'll have to see him tomorrow." She doesn't mind coming right in the middle of an interview and going, "Hey, the kid's getting ready to go to bed."
She didn't guilt trip you at all. That was awesome.
No,
That's how it's
she's a
supposed to
rooster,
be.
man. She's one of us. I mean, she's she's the one that's hanging out with the guys at the end of well, before she got pregnant. She was the one hanging out in the pit with the guys before we shut down and having beer in the pit with them and having a good time. So
Okay.
She's a racer like we are.
Okay. Well, I mean, is there anything you would do to the sport right now that you see doing differently? What would you do for the sport? Or you think it's all systems go? It's looking great. Everything's going the right direction.
I don't think there's anything that just stands out and says to me that you got to fix this. I mean, I think the fuel cell deal is probably the one I'm most passionate about, of not having fuel cells flying off of cars. But aside from that, I mean, we've seen some great races the last couple of years, and
Even with the
so
dirty airs and all this stuff, we still do occasionally get
yeah.
our great
But
races.
I think a lot of that's on the track promoters. I mean, the guys that are prepping racetracks are giving them 2 and 3 groove racetracks to where,
Hmm.
the tracks are getting wide enough that you can pull slide jobs, and you got options. And as long as the drivers have options, I think it's fine. But if tracks get to where, you look at a lot of the pavement tracks that are short tracks and they're all piling around the bottom, and the only way anybody's going to pass is knock them out of the way. As long as we don't get that in dirt track racing, I think we're good.
Okay. And are you getting in a sprint car anytime soon?
I would like to. I mean, I miss it. I miss it more than people realize I miss it. But
You could easily double duty at Perth. I mean, the drag strip.
actually
I'm
was
sure
an
you've seen
option.
the pictures. I'm sure
Yeah,
you've
that
seen the
actually was
pictures.
an option in the conversation.
It's astounding. You're at the top of the grandstands like at Eldora, and you're watching the dirt race, and you turn around, and instead of the beer barn there with your toilet water, you're at the top of the tree, and they're taking off right there. It's
Yeah, if I was going to get back in a wing sprint car, the pace is definitely quicker than it's ever been. I feel like the cars are hooked up so good. I mean, if I was going to run a wing sprint car right now, I would legitimately have to go to a gym and work out and get in shape to do it
mm,
again. I am definitely not race fit. Running 3.5 second runs doesn't keep you race
right.
fit. So there would be a lot of work that I would have to do to get ready to run a sprint car again, just personally.
Well, that
But
probably isn't a bad thing. You probably see that as halfway of a good thing. It ain't bad to get into some workout regimen sometimes. I mean, it
yeah,
ain't bad.
I don't think it's bad if I can get myself talked into doing it and just get committed to doing it. But I need to do it anyway, just from the standpoint that I got a 4-month-old son that I'm gonna be chasing around soon. And if I'm sitting there gasping for air, leaning against the refrigerator,
There you
grabbing a
go.
beer, catch my breath, it's probably
Yeah,
not gonna work as well.
that's
So
true.
something.
So okay, so we got to get on the phone with the Migros. I'm sure they'll want you at the high limit race there at Perth. This is the new ticket to be sold right here. I just
Well,
they're
we
building
got
stands now.
we have a lot of details to work through to make what we're talking about happen. But we're in the discovery period of what do they want, what does it look like, what am I driving, who am I driving for, what time frame is it taking? Because obviously when our season ends is the week after the NASCAR season's over, and then we have PRI show at Indy. That's a big deal for all of us,
Right.
and so it really doesn't give us a lot of time to sneak over for a trip. But we're definitely interested in talking to them about it and seeing what's available.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining the show. I didn't think.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I mean, we've been working on it. People ask me, "How'd you get that done?" I was like, "I've been talking to her for like 4 months." He keeps saying
We
next
just have
week.
to have an agreement that the next time we do this, we don't wait till the end of this to go, damn, we should have had a beer when we started
I
this.
will agree with this. I will agree with this.
We will make adjustments before the next episode.
This. I don't know how that episode will go though. That may have some heightened voices.
Well, it sometimes it just has to be whatever it is.
Got
So
to get Donnie on here with us. That'd be even funnier.
I don't know, man. If you get him drinking too much, he starts singing Tina Turner, and it can kind of be like your karaoke deal. I mean, it can be okay or it can be really bad. So I don't we've got to really think about that aspect
So
of it.
the annoying part goes away from the hairline to the voice.
Yes. Yes.
I'm just messing.
Yeah.
I'm just messing. We never even talked about the
Your words.
Ford deal.
I'm
You
just
know
saying,
that,
yeah.
right? We never even talked about the Ford deal this entire time.
No,
We
yeah,
did.
you're right. We
We
have.
didn't even. I just it just crossed my mind. Didn't even talk about it.
All right. Well, we still have Fords. We haven't sold any of our motors. We just have to put something in that we don't have enough parts to run them right now. That is the full extent of the
So the
Ford deal.
rumor of you're getting the Mark Kinzer Mopars out of the shed and refurbishing them with Mopar, that's not happening.
Didn't even know that was a rumor, but
I'm just kidding. I'm just making it up.
that's why I hadn't heard it then. No, I mean it's not the ideal situation by any means. I mean we've put a lot of money into this development of this motor. And unfortunately, there's just been setback after setback. Um, where we stand right now is we just don't have parts. If we stayed with the program as scheduled, by the time we got to the Knoxville Nationals, we would not have motors to compete at the Knoxville Nationals. And that is not something that I can sit there and look Donnie Schatz in the eyes and say, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to field a car there because we don't have parts, we don't have heads, we don't have blocks. So there were unfortunate setbacks. Ford's as unhappy about it as we are, obviously. But at the same time, I'm proud that Ford is not throwing in the towel and saying we're not going to come up with a solution. They're going to work through a solution. But in the meantime, I've got to fix my race team. Um, we've kind of been down this path long enough and had enough setbacks that it's starting to affect my guys and obviously Donnie as a driver. So um, we're all committed to it getting fixed, but right now I can't be the guinea pig in the process. I can't just keep going down the path we're on. So I need to do some stuff to fix my program and get us in a better spot. And, at the point that, you know, Ford gets these motors where they feel like they're right. And through the whole process, we'll test anytime they have something they want us to run. We'll have it in a car and we'll go to a test session and we'll have two cars to where Donnie can feel both motors and feel like we're in the right direction or wrong direction. And we'll do whatever we can to support it. But, in the meantime, we still got to run a race team and a professional race team at that. And when we're running out of parts and we're band-aiding things to get to the next event, it's not sustainable. So it's not that we're abandoning the program. It's not that we're against the program, but we have to survive. We got to eat, and that's Donnie's living. It's these crew guys living, and we got obligations to our other partners that are on the cars to put our best foot forward. So sometimes in doing that, you have to make tough decisions that people will agree with or don't understand everything. But being in the position I am and knowing the situation we're in, we had to make this change. And thank God we were mindful of it months ago and at least enacted a insurance policy to in case we needed them. Unfortunately, we do need them now. So I'm at least grateful that we were forward thinking enough to put the plan in place because we knew if we didn't need it and everything got better that we would get our money back out of them. But if we didn't get them ordered when we did, there was no way we would have had them in time to do what we're doing now, and we would be in a really bad spot this week.
So do y'all have a good supply of Chevy motors, or is it still you
Not
need
yet.
some more? Or
Yeah, we definitely need more. I mean, we have pieced together uh, two different packages, and we're we're basically the motor that's in there now is a Kistler, and Donnie seems to be happy with it right now. So right now, instead of changing motors in and out and trying to figure out which motor he likes better, he's happy with what he's got. We need to work on our race cars right now and give Todd and the crew guys and Donnie a shot to get the balance of the car where it needs to be. So it is a difference in weight in the motors, and I'm not sure. I think the Ford's a little bit heavier, so weight and balance of it is an issue that we're having to work through right now to get the balance back with the car. So we'll work through it. Like I said, I hope everything goes
while trying to keep up with David Gravel and Carson
yeah.
Macedo
Yeah,
and Hodden
I,
Shout and all and Kofoid's on his rise.
while they're pulling away in the point standings and driving away from us because we're having issues, we can't afford that. So financially, I couldn't afford where we were at right now because the way we're having to band it. I mean, Ron Shaver is an awesome engine builder, and the things that he was having to do to just get us through, you would not typically do, and he busts his ass to keep us going with the Fords. So we've got a couple of his that Donnie had for the nieces, but um, I'm hesitant to run it because they're not my motors, they're Donnie's motors, and they're for the girls to run with their season this year. So we're trying to not use them if we don't have to, but Donnie has been very gracious, and so have the girls about if we need them, put them in. So we'll do what we have to do, but right now we gotta give Ford time to get stock back up on the things that we need that we don't have, and finish this project.
Well, the hardcore Donnie fans are praising Allah for this move. They think the Ford is what destroyed his dominance. And we were running down the stats a couple months ago or a month ago, I think it was, and it was like Because gravel, if he wins 37 this year, he passes Wolfgang. And I was trying to see who had won an abundant amount. And it was the Donnie years. It was 24, 31. And then it went 12. And then it went 5 and 3 and 4. And I was like, holy shit. And it was like, it aligned with the Ford change. Obviously, there was the Ricky Warner situation. But bow tie to blue oval is what these damn rednecks out here in the dirt world that love Chevrolet motors, and Chevy's dominated the dirt track industry.
Yeah.
Sprint cars
Yeah.
for sure. So
I would say the motors have had a hand in it, but we knew that going into it. I mean, the reason we went the Ford route was because Donnie wasn't happy with these motors. So I made the commitment to start a new
it was
program.
Donnie's idea.
Well, it was my idea, but I had listened to him complain about his motors long enough that it's like, we have to make a big move. And this was a big move, switching to Ford. So Ford was excited about it. We're excited about it. Donnie was excited about it. And so off we went. But, after 8 years of it now, we don't have a lot to show for it. I mean, we still have a Knoxville Nationals win out of it. Kings Royal.
National Open.
Some highlights, but not to the level that we're accustomed to. But that's not you mentioned it, that's not the only variable in the equation that changed. And that also was not my idea. That was not what I wanted for our race team, but that's what two of the three guys in the race team wanted. And that's the change that happened because of it. So, I think everybody that in that period of time would love to go back and rethink that decision, but I was not on board with that decision, but I did what needed to be done to salvage the race team.
Well, I guess you're speaking of the Ricky Warner, Donnie Schatz split.
Yeah.
And
I
then
was definitely not a fan of that.
Scuba was a lineage of that, right? I believe.
Yes.
And now Todd is the lineage of Scuba, correct? Is that how that works?
Todd's lineage of Ricky.
As well?
Yeah. So it's, but Scuba did a great job too, but Scuba got thrown to the wolves with the motor program on top of it. And so, you're not taking the same package there. So it didn't do Scuba any favors, and it's not been doing Todd any favors at the beginning of the season either here. So at least now having a motor in there that is not the variable in the equation that we're worried about, now they can focus on the things that they need to work on.
Well, and if it's the Chevy, as all the fans say, well, I was saying the other day, it'd take about a month to see where it's
smart.
at.
They all buy race cars and own race teams, and we can all go race against each other.
It'll take about a month. I still think it'll take a month.
But it's not all that. I can tell you that for a fact. I mean, I drove those motors too, and I mean, literally the last 3 races I ran, I won in Virginia. I ran 6th at Williams Grove and 7th at Port Royal. It's like they weren't that bad. I mean, for me to run the top 10 in PA is a big deal for me. I'm not Donnie Schatz.
So is it a GoPro thing then? I always make this joke. It's a GoPro thing. Like when people don't want a GoPro on their car because they may wreck the vehicle, it's like, no, the GoPro didn't drive the vehicle into the wall and flip it into the fence. You did that. You could blame the GoPro, but and it's a lack of self-accountability.
Well, it goes back to what over an hour ago we talked about. I mean, people make their decision off of 100% of the information they have. So it's not saying that the people aren't wrong. They just don't know all the variables of the equation and all the details that encompass the whole package of it and the whole decision making. They're making their decision off of the limited information that they have. So it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means they don't have all the info they need to have.
Well, I mean, if Donnie comes out, starts ripping them off in the Chevy here soon, I mean, it's gonna.
That'd be great. I just want to win races again and have fun with my race team again. It's not fun when they're not running good. Donnie's not fun to be around.
He's not. He's not. I said it. He's not.
But I don't want him to be fun to be around when we're not running good. I want him to be pissed off. I mean, he's got standards, and it's my job to give him the equipment he needs to go do his job.
Well, it's a big change. I would think it's a big change to go back to Chevys after, what is that, 4 years or 5 years straight now? 2020? 8 years. 8 years. 8 years. Okay, so it was 2019?
Yeah.
Or what? That'd be 6.
More than that.
So his last championship was 18, I believe. So it was 19 or 20 that he switched. Yeah. So it would have been 5 or 6. But regardless, a long years of one motor program, and now over to a Chevy. That's a big change. Just going,
And
hell, some people say going from a
there was overlap too. There was overlap when we started the Ford program until we were able to start running them.
right.
So
Well, I mean, some people say going from a Ryder to a Kistler is a big change. You know, so it is a change. It is a big change.
every motor builder's got their package, and it's developed off of what their driver's feedback was. And so I agree. Every motor builder's got a different package that feels a different way, and throttle's different, and every driver wants something a little different. So that's why having all these different manufacturers and all these different engine builders, that's why it's so key, and why everybody doesn't just run whatever the hot one is. Everybody doesn't just jump ship and go to that. It's because they have a package that's working for them that they're happy with. So um, when somebody comes up with a new package that's better, you'll see some guys jump on that train, and some guys will drive it and don't necessarily like the way it feels. So it's still about driver preference.
And then you got some Ferrari motors out there too. The guys with the special names, and not everybody gets to have one. And
Yeah.
apparently, those are going to start being 6-figure engines soon.
I hope not, because that's not sustainable.
That's not sustainable. Not currently, no. But you know, when you got that little specialness, I guess they can start throwing special prices on it. You know,
That's kind of the way the world works, unfortunately.
the
I
Ferrari.
should say, unfortunately. I mean, if you come up with something that's better, and
Yeah.
you can get people to pay a premium price for it, good for you.
Unless they
That's
can
what
patent it like Jeff did with those bleeders, man. He did a good job there on making sure
Yeah.
he's paid for that. I mean, imagine all the patents Sammy and Carl Kinzer could have did for sprint car parts. They'd be millionaires today. You know.
Yeah, I don't know that they'd be the same, but they'd be millionaires for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Alrighty. Alrighty. It's getting like 3.5 hours. I mean, you was talking about an hour. Why are you still here? What happened? Do you feel sorry
I
for me,
waited,
or
so I haven't been looking at the clock, and I took my glasses off. I can't even see the time on the screen. So
the Deathridge glasses have the anti-glare if you need some you know, I mean,
work on
Donnie
my
wears the
program.
same glasses, man. Donnie wears
My optical program needs help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for calling in. Is there any sign out messages? Do you want to say any highs or hellos?
no, just man, I appreciate our dirt track community, because I'm still, that is my number one passion and love, is dirt track racing. And whether you're a sprint car fan, a late model fan, a modified fan, just the fact that you're a dirt track fan, that's my favorite people. I mean, they're the ones that I feel like have the most common sense when it comes to motorsports. They're the most educated about uh, that form of sport. I mean, I listen to NASCAR fans talk about NASCAR, and they don't have a clue what they're talking about. I listen to some drag race fans, and it's impossible. I mean, I've been driving a top fuel car for a year, and I still don't understand all the things of how it works and why it works the way it does. But I feel like sprint car fans got a pretty damn good pulse on what's going on and the reality of most of the situations involved in it. So I, I'm I'm just a diehard dirt guy at heart. I can't wait to get back to Eldora. Um, wish I was running a sprint car some in the middle of all the 60 days I'm on the road with the NHRA deal, but I miss it, and trying to, one of the goals this year, when we got rid of all the NASCAR stuff at the end of the year, I told Leah my goal this year was to go to more of the sprint car races, and then that's what I'm sticking to. So looking forward to hopefully seeing everybody at the track soon.
Okay. All you gotta do is put it out there. You need a ride. I'm sure you can get a ride at every little town in the world.
Todd and Scuba and those guys, they've got one of my cars still held at the shop, and they're like, anytime you want us to bring it down, you just let us know. I'm like, yeah, well, after I get my gym membership, we'll start talking about it. So,
Well, we already documented how the chassis ain't changed, so it could be just as competitive. Just as competitive.
yeah, they're just gonna have to throw a caution every 4 laps so I can catch my breath. So
Oh god. The only thing that changed is you. That's the deal.
that's right.
Okay.
That's right. The rest of it's all pretty much in order. So
All righty. Well, thanks for taking your time. 3.5 hours. I didn't think we'd get that from you, and hopefully we didn't press too many buttons or piss you off or whatever.
I'm good, man. I enjoyed it. It's like I said, I like watching your show. I think you got a pretty good read most of the time of what's going on, and I like that there's a little element of personality wise. I feel like personality trait wise that we share with just calling a spade, and doesn't have to. We don't really care whether everybody likes it all the time or not. We're just going to call it the way we see it. So,
Thank you. It means a lot.
all right, brother.
Go handle Leah or whatever you got to deal with.
Yeah, I think that ship sailed. I think she's got Dom in the sheets and got him put to bed, and I think I'm literally going to be looking for food here. So you got me.
Oh, food and
The
beer.
beer's
Beer,
the
food.
beer is 10 steps away. The food, on the other hand,
Ugh.
is DoorDash or Uber Eats away. So it's going to take a little longer.
Oh my. Okay. Sorry to hold you up.
No, it's all good, man. All good. Glad to do it.
Alrighty. Thank you.
All right, bud. Talk to you soon.
Bye. There you had it, ladies and gentlemen. Tony Stewart on the show. It was an interesting chat. We are going over to the commentays. We are going over to the commentays. Should we do some live call reactions? I don't know. I don't think we should. It's too late for live call reactions. Is it not? Smoke, I respect you. Fuck your feelings. I feel the spade jumping the throttle on that. Oh, God. That's that. Appreciate it, Chaz. Okay. Well, thanks for the likes. Did we get any super chats? We didn't get one dang super chat. Isn't that funny? Oh, we did. Hammer down with the $4.99. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Hammer down, for the support. Spoke the truth about NASCAR that all the blind moron NASCAR fans don't understand. Thank you, Smoke. That was a good one. Yes, it was. 3.5 hours, guys. I did not see that coming. So that was a long time. Talked about a bunch of different topics. Addressed some of the stuff that even the haters have been talking about. So that was good to get all that out there as well. And educational, I think, for some. Also, when it comes to, like he said, calling a spade and not being as offended as easily as some are. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning into the show. Be sure to like the video, share it around. We'll be making some clips over the next few days, so be sure to subscribe if you missed a part here or there. We'll be able to put those out. Also, we'll be putting out clips on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Follow us on there. Long live the Chaz everywhere else. Chaz and Tony 2028. We could take down the political offices. This is possible. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch y'all next time.